Good evening. It is 7 o'clock. We are in council chambers for our regularly scheduled council meeting. Members of council, we do not have an amended agenda this evening, but we have had a request for 2 additional delegations. And in order to do that, we would require a waiver of procedural bylaw if someone would like to move that. Otherwise, we'll move on with the agenda as circulated. Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson are moving, seconding a waiver of procedural bylaw to allow 2 additional agenda delegations. I apologize. Comments or questions on that? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Council, may I please have declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have 2 community presentations to start the evening. Our first one is Mr. Daniele Zanotti, President and CEO of United Way Toronto and York Region. Really, that should be York Region and Toronto, Daniele. So if you could do something about that, we would appreciate it. Daniele is going to speak to us of the 2017 campaign, I believe.
Your Worship, members of council, staff, guests, a pleasure to be here. The first person I met on the 12th floor of the Mississauga Civic Center was Mo, graduating from United Way funded IT NPower, born in Mimico to a single mom, in and out of social housing, moved to Malton at 15, in and out of high school, in and out of part-time jobs, trying to help mom make ends meet. He falls into the arms of community, finds a flyer to join a United Way IT workforce pathway, complete his GED, start post-secondary education, internship, and a path to a full-time job. Mo graduates to cheers from friends, hug from his mom, a handshake from a senior executive at CompuGen right here in York Region, where he did his internship. Poverty, the struggle to make ends meet, access to a helping hand close to home. These issues know no boundaries. They know no us or them, but you know that, town of Aurora. Year over year, you show that Aurora cares. Thanks to your employees, you raised a record $18,505 for community in 2017, a 75% increase over 2016. Let me repeat that, a 75% increase, town of Aurora. Deeming you winner of our 2017 Spirit Award for campaign. A special thank you to John Furman, Tracy Evans, longtime employee coordinator Ivy Henriksen, your CAO, and the entire leadership team. When I reached out years ago to talk about the United Way York Region, then leading a discussion to merge with United Way Toronto, each of you championed the integration if we could raise more locally, invest more locally, and ensure we had more local representation. And I recall your worship, in your own unique way, said, I can get behind this bigger thing if Aurora residents and agencies do better. 3 years after our merger, and a few weeks after our second merger with United Way Peel Region, we are now United Way Greater Toronto, working with communities in Peel, Toronto, and York Region. Because our recent opportunity equation in the GTA validates what you already know. Income inequality is spreading. Middle-income neighborhoods across the GTA are being replaced by either low or high-income communities. The City of Toronto remains the income inequality capital of Canada, but neighborhood polarization is spreading into the 905. In 1980, no neighborhoods in York Region were low income. Today, 16% of neighborhoods in our region are low income. And in Peel, most dramatically, a full 52%, a majority of neighborhoods are now low income. This is why together, our regional United Way is better positioned to fight local poverty. In York Region alone, we have increased our community investments by over 5% since the merger, now supporting 47 agencies delivering hundreds of programs. Anchor partners like Community Living York South, 360 Kids, Canadian Hearing Society, Family Services York Region, and Care First. And here in Aurora, program partners like Alzheimer's Society, Big Brothers Big Sisters York Region, CMHA York Region, Cedar Center, CHATS, the York Center, the Women's Center, Yellow Brick House. And for the first time in over a decade, we have welcomed a total of 8 new agencies across York Region, delivering 26 programs. Perea Trillium Foundation, Human Endeavor, supporting close to 1,000 seniors at 8 locations across the region. The Jewish Russian Community Center Furniture Depot, offering gently used furniture for people in need. Seniors Persons Living Connected, the Craftsman Center, providing a peer recovery program for people living with mental health challenges. We are continuing to work with the Human Service Planning Board, working together on a Made in York Region community benefits framework, one that would see all public-private partnerships include 10% of all apprentices coming from priority communities, youth facing multiple barriers. All of this with you, and a stubborn resolve to continue to invest locally, strengthen our impact, and increase our presence. Thank you all, Town of Aurora, for getting behind us and being with us on our regional scale to be fiercely local in your Aurora.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zanotti. Council, may I first have a motion to receive? Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim, comments or questions for Mr. Zanotti, please? Councillor Gardner.
Hello, Mr. Zanotti. It's been a long time since you've been coming to council. It's good to see you. It's very unpleasant and sad to hear your statistics, but it's very good to know the work that you're doing. And also, congratulations, all staff sitting here. Please congratulate our town staff for doing so well. And obviously, the need is great. So, do you see this changing in the future, changing for the better in the future?
That, Councillor, is an eternal question. I think we have seen our ability to raise dollars increase as a result of the merger. I think we have seen the capacity of local agencies across Aurora and York Region strengthened in their ability to meet immediate needs. And I'm also heartened by some of our corporate partners like your very own State Farm, now Desjardins, who are not only raising more dollars, but engaging their employees in local initiatives, a day of caring at Yellow Brick House or at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I think this combination of raising more, investing in the social infrastructure of our growing region, and encouraging companies to do more than write a check, but actually roll up their sleeves and get involved, is optimism for being able to resolve some of the pressures we are facing.
And seeing so many low-income neighborhoods here in Canada in general, we're also going to be looking for help from the provincial and federal governments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other speakers, please? Seeing none, Daniele, thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for the work and the effort that you put into driving the organization forward. You appeared at Regional Council last week. The same good news story across York Region. So thank you very much for what you do. And I'm looking forward to the luncheon on June the 13th, when we will hear a Nona story, correct?
We will.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. All in favor of receiving? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And speaking of rolling our hands up here and getting involved, we have next delegation is Mr. Stephen Forsey, who's going to talk to us about the inductees for the 2018 Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Mr. Forsey.
I don't think I needed these last year, so. Mayor Daw, members of council, town staff, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present to you this evening the 2018 slate of inductees for the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Before I announce the names, I would like to take this opportunity to do a few thank yous. First of all, to our selection panel. They are a diverse group of 5 sports enthusiasts who provided the required objective due diligence on all of the nominations that were submitted in the last year. While they remain anonymous, we are very appreciative of their time and effort to perform this very valuable function. Secondly, I would like to thank the members of the Aurora Sport Hall of Fame Induction Committee who reviewed all of the successful names that were put forward by the selection panel and recommended 4 to be enshrined into the hall this coming November. And finally, I would like to thank Ron Weiss and Nancy Black for their support and leadership. Thank you. Okay. Our first inductee is Paulina Allen in the athletes category. Paulina is a triathlete who, over an 8-year period, placed in the top 5 of various Ironman races around the world, qualifying for the World Championships 3 times and racing in the prestigious race in Hawaii twice, finishing 22nd in 2008 and 33rd in 2009. Our second inductee, also in the athletes category, is David Moreland IV. I know there's a few golfers in here, so they may recognize the name. David was an exceptional junior golfer who honed his skills while living in Aurora. He went on to become only one of a handful of Canadians to play on the PGA Tour, competing in approximately 120 events from 2000 to 2011. His best finish, and many of you may remember this, was a 5th place finish in the Bell Canadian Open at Glen Abbey in Oakville, Ontario. Our next inductee is Robert Bain in the coaches category. Robert is a longtime resident of Aurora who was named the head coach of York University's men's basketball team in the early 70s, a position he held for 38 years, officially retiring at the end of the 2010-11 season. During that time, his teams made the playoffs 35 times, claiming 11 OUA East Division titles, 6 OUA banners, and making 8 CIS championship appearances. Along the way, he also made a significant number of contributions to coaching. And our final inductee is Loring Doolittle in the Builder Contributor category, who we will be inducting posthumously. If you recognize this name, it is because Loring was born in Aurora and raised in Aurora at 34 Catherine Avenue in what is now a heritage home. Also, previous council thought highly enough of his accomplishments that they named a street after him. Loring was a very good athlete who excelled at hockey, baseball, and lacrosse. After completing school, he went on to work as a baseball umpire in the United States, returning home in the winters to referee hockey. In 1956, he worked both the Allen Cup and the Memorial Cup. In 1959, he advanced to the NHL as an official, where he went on to have a very distinguished career. In conclusion, I now ask 2 things of council, if I may, and quite frankly, all of Aurora. Our induction dinners, our 6th, will take place on Thursday, November 8th at St. Andrew's College. Please reserve the date in your calendars, as it would be a pleasure to have you join us. Finally, please encourage all Aurorans to continue to submit nominations for those that you feel are worthy of induction. The nominations process is where it all begins, and if you'd like further information, please visit our website at www.aurorashof.ca. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forsey. Council, may I first have a motion to receive? I've got Councillors Thompson and Humphreys. Comments or questions for Mr. Forsey, please? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming out. We do appreciate it. All in favor of receipt? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now move to delegations. The first delegation is from Mr. Daniel Gare, representing Habitat for Humanity, and that's in reference to a motion that I have on later in the agenda. And introducing Mr. Gare is former Mayor of Newmarket, Mr. Tom Taylor. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Mr. Mayor and members of council and staff, thank you for having us here this evening. Daniel Gare, who is the Vice President of Land for Habitat for Humanity, the new amalgamated Habitat for Humanity, was unable to make it due to sickness. And so, Neem, where are you? He is going to take you through the presentation. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, Mayor Don, members of council. My name is Nima Kia. I'm the development manager for Habitat GTA. Further to Mayor Daw's motion on this item, Habitat GTA is looking to partner with the town to promote new affordable housing in Aurora. Habitat GTA is struggling to make affordable housing projects viable with rapidly increasing land costs, development charges, HST, and other financial pressures. Our organization is requesting council's consideration for a new policy mechanism or bylaw which grants deferral of all fees and charges applied to future affordable housing units produced by Habitat GTA. All deferred funds will be repaid to the municipality once the term of Habitat's mortgage is complete or upon sale of the home. As some of you may be aware, our organization's mission is to break the cycle of poverty by producing affordable home ownership opportunities for lower working income families. Our goal is to work closely with Aurora and other municipalities in York Region to achieve a significant increase in the number of Habitat builds in the coming years. This slide before you represents a cross-section of some of the population groups we serve. It's a wide-ranging group, as you'll note. Habitat ensures the affordability of its projects through an innovative model. It includes 500 hours of sweat equity, what we call sweat equity, essentially volunteer hours instead of a cash down payment, zero interest mortgages, and mortgage payments adjusted to 30% of gross household income. Some of the multiplier benefits of our model include low-income rental units freed up for the next family, new property tax revenues to the town, reduced reliance on social programs, and second and third generation benefits as the cycle of poverty is broken. Past Habitat builds in York Region have predominantly been single detached dwellings. However, our future focus is on multi-unit developments. Habitat has recently deputed before Newmarket Council, which adopted a similar fee deferral policy as we are requesting today. I'm happy to share the specifics of that deferral policy framework with staff. A deferral framework would provide the following broad benefits. It would be revenue neutral for the town, as the town would be fully repaid with the rate of return. It would assist in increasing the stock of affordable housing units in a very cost-effective manner. It would provide Habitat GTA with certainty to proceed with projects, creating proactive opportunities for affordable housing, and all deferred fees and charges will be secured through a mortgage loan on title. I'm happy to take any questions from members of council.
Thank you very much, sir. May I first have a motion to receive and refer to the motion? Councillors Thompson and Maracas. Any comments or questions for Mr. Gare? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you for coming. Could you go back to the slide on people who are being helped? So these would be one-parent families?
Habitat requires a minimum of one wage earner to qualify for a program.
Thank you. I never considered that a high school teacher would be looking for a home from Habitat Humanity.
Yes, we serve a population which constitutes typically the 40th to 60th income percentile. A lot of the populations that we serve would require assistance through social housing, and that's one of the benefits of our model. It does free up social housing for people in need.
Thank you. And are there other people working in who are you consider in need that are not on this list?
Yes, this is just meant to be a very broad representation. There's a large population which benefits from our program and model.
What about a two-parent family both working in retail making minimum wage?
Yes, they would represent a typical family selected in one of our homes. I think the bottom cell shows two minimum wage earners.
And how is priority given?
We have a family services team. It's actually quite an extensive process to be selected as what we call a partner family. One of the qualifications is obviously household income, but we also go and interview families. We meet families where they live, and we actually observe their living conditions. And there's a whole assessment process that goes into selecting a family.
Thank you. And should I assume that single-parent families are also eligible for this?
Yes, they are. And a lot of our partner families are, in fact, single-parent households.
Even though they might be below the 40th percentile?
It becomes challenging to serve a population underneath the 40th income percentile. Our typical range is 40th to 50th income percentile.
Thank you. Last question. You mentioned multi-tenanted units. Are you talking about apartments?
Typically stacked townhouse product. That's what we've been developing very successfully in other municipalities. It's very effective in that it truly is affordable in terms of the GFA of the product and what a family can afford. So very likely stacked townhouse product or townhouse product is what we'd like to move forward with in the town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, my questions were answered. I just want to take my name off to say just thank you very much. And I believe in the program, and I hope that we can see a lot more homes come to fruition. And I noticed Aurora just has the one, I guess. And I guess it comes down to the selection process, right? So geographically, it just depends on who needs it the most.
It's quite challenging. We found it quite challenging given some of the items we discussed, including land costs and development charges. So a deferral policy would greatly assist in making it more viable for Habitat to build future homes in Aurora.
Perfect, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gartner again?
Thank you. I did forget a question. Are you coming to us because you want Aurora in the greater mix, or have you identified a location in Aurora?
We have not identified a specific location. However, we would like to be proactive in your community. York Region is a high priority for our organization, and any opportunity that presents itself, we would like to proactively pursue, and this would greatly assist us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other comments or questions, all in favor of receipt and refer to the item, please. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much, Mr. Teo. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. And with the other two delegates that we had request, one was David Hurd. Oh, I'm sorry, Martin Ambrose. My apologies, Mr. Ambrose. You're up next. And that's with respect to item R7.
Ready to go? Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, ladies and gentlemen, and congratulations to all inductees into the Hall of Fame. I've taken the time to delegate again this evening as president of the Aurora Soccer Club, who play their sport on a full-size lit rectangular field. Specifically, I'm here to present our concerns about the development of the Hallmark lands, which currently neglects our needs. We'd again like to respectfully ask that Council take a closer look at the proposal, the process, the criteria, and the committee input that has led to the development decision here before you. The data supports the need for both diamonds and rectangular fields. Are the 2016 Master Rec Plan's recommendations out of date? 1 lit ball diamond, 3 lit full-size fields. The data used to support the April 17th proposal was provided at a delegation in April 2017. Why was adult soccer excluded? Why the priority change in the rec plan? There should be no winners or losers, but perhaps some healthy compromise. As the adult soccer players see it, we made our needs known to staff in December of 2017 and again in March of 2018. Hallmark was mentioned, but this pending staff proposal was not discussed. We became aware of staff's proposal through a Facebook post. We delegated, as you know, in April. We attended the PRC SAC committee meeting on May 7th. That's a mouthful. We questioned the utilisation representation in the May 17 sports field usage spreadsheet. We have no location with 2 Class A fields side by side. We overutilise full-size lit fields today. Our membership continues to ask me and the board, why does this appear to be a done deal? To avoid doubt, we have taken the data from the spreadsheet supplied and the town's field and diamond inventory. There are 5 lit rectangular full-size fields in town. That's 1 lit field per 1,059 players. There are 8 lit softball diamonds. That is 1 diamond, or one diamond for 278 players. Hardball was not discussed. I'm sorry for the hardball people in the room. If we look at Highland Park, where we play out of, that's 1 lit field for 450 competitive players at 9 p.m. in the evening. We accommodate our non-competitive players at 7 p.m. The ASC is at 100% utilisation and rents space outside of town. The Class B and C comparisons in the spreadsheet is comparing apples to oranges. Our soccer is scheduled at 7 to 9 and 9 till 11, not 6 till 8. Let's avoid soccer and baseball for a second. Johnny walks up to a swimming pool, jumps in the deep end, swims up lane 1 from 6 till 8 o'clock. Mary pops in at 7 o'clock, jumps in the pool beside him, swims up and down from 7 till 9 o'clock. If I pull a data set from 6 to 8, lane 1 is fully utilised at 100%, lane 2 is 50%. None of us can doubt that Johnny and Mary utilised 2 hours of swim time. The data sets need to be tied together if we're going to make decisions. This is my invitation, if I can have it beamed up. I'm happy to read it, as that's tough writing. At the end of the debate at the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, one individual observer from each group did comment, not debate. Baseball and youth soccer did speak briefly and eloquently. I did speak only as a member of public. Should time permit, I am happy to repeat my remarks. The unanimous decision was made by PRC SAC with no soccer representation. There may be a misconception that Sport Aurora represent us. They do not. My understanding is committee recommendations are not binding on the town unless adopted by council. We, the ASC, want to help you and our fellow recreational users create a win-win scenario. We are now and have always been open to dialogue. I again request that Council direct that staff include at least 1 soccer field with floodlights in the project design and approval. In addition, we request that soccer be provided with its own representation on the Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services Advisory Committee. This concludes my comments, and thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrose. May I first have a motion to receive and refer to the item? Councillor Marcus, thank you. Councillor Humphreys. Speakers, please. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's obviously a concerning issue for all the sports clubs. And from your perspective, you mentioned you wanted at least 1 soccer field set. Would you see more of a better process to maybe have more of an additional planning meeting and more open a meeting with staff and councillors to listen? I know that there's a lot of data there. You're thinking it might be a little bit out of date or not accurate, or?
Yeah, I think we should be fair to every single recreational user, and in particular if we're going to have the conversation about the hallmark lands, rectangular fields and baseball. Baseball clearly have a demand. Their numbers have clearly gone up. Soccer clearly has a demand. The numbers have clearly gone up. But if we're going to compare a 2016 data point to a 2017 data point and a 2018 data point, it does draw the plan into question. There's no doubting that the plan has accuracy, and there was even a need when it was put together prior to 2016. I don't think any of us can doubt that. I do think that perhaps the pause button is necessary, and perhaps we should sit around the table and figure this out. In fairness to all of the members of that committee, there were lots of alternative suggestions. With which due respect to all of the people in that committee, those alternatives started with the word soccer. They never started with the word baseball. Not once. I was in attendance, I sat, I listened. So I believe that if we're going to look at compromise, we should all look at compromise. If we need to have two baseball fields together, nobody popped up and said, and in fairness to Mr. Downey here, he did point out that if Matchel was used, what are we going to do about the poor residents if we stick in lights? It is a fair comment. We have lights at Fleury. We have lights at the Fleury Diamond. Why wouldn't we consider taking the Fleury soccer field away, backing the two diamonds back to each so they're not hitting each other with balls, and putting two soccer fields into Hallmark? The compromise there is we will get delayed for a year on the lack of Fleury. Alistair, I'm really sorry. Alistair's going to kill me. I'll buy you a pint. But okay, we get two fields at the end of the day. It increases our ability from a capacity perspective. And you know, if you want us to get involved, you already. Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. You know that we look after the Highlands ourselves today. We'll just buy Jeremy a bigger tractor and we'll cut the grass in Lion Field.
No,
Hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely, it does. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And no, I appreciate that, all that information, because, you know, it does sound like, I like what you mentioned. You know, let's hit the pause button for a moment and see if there's between all the clubs, there's an opportunity to come up with a win-win all around. I mean, there is absolutely need for baseball, absolutely soccer, other fields, rectangular fields. There's some very critical needs in our community, and maybe there's an opportunity to discuss further. But no, I really appreciate your feedback tonight and last week as well. Thanks.
Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the delegate, Mr. Ambrose, thank you very much for coming. It's a very excellent delegation. I'm just curious, you speak to, if we did move to a one-in-one scenario, would it be acceptable from your thoughts to move forward with a multi-use rectangular field, so therefore other recreational opportunities could be realized as far as football, lacrosse as well?
We do that already, and I'm sorry Bill Kozowski isn't here this evening because he's fantastic at the stats for the youth side. The answer is we do that already. As you were driving up here, you probably saw the rugby guys out on Max Colbay, and that's their senior team, and they've got 12 teams. So they're predominantly occupying 7 to 9. To alleviate certainly the adult and the competitive youth, which is ages 11 forward, being able to put it to multi-use, where we get maybe a prime spot in that 9 to 11 category, that is fantastic. It also, given its location on Industrial Parkway, right, or Vandorf, they're side by each, it means that the folks are 5 minutes from us. So we manage to also keep them in the hearts and minds of the community, and we get that social interaction, which is what we all need.
Perfect, and I thank you for that answer. Thank you very much.
Any other speakers, please? See, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. Are you here representing the Aurora Soccer Club in general, or just those using the larger fields?
I'm here representing the Aurora Soccer Club, but the youth soccer also utilizes the large fields. All of their competitive teams, and they have 20 of them. So the math on 20 is they can carry 18 to 22 players. So you can do the math as to how many players that is. And then on top of that, they do also run house league on large fields. They can run some of their house league in the evenings and on weekends, but they do also take some of that capacity away from us during the course of the week.
Thank you. And the smaller, excuse me, the smaller fields are used for non-competitive and younger groups?
Smaller are used for non-competitive in youth, where they're doing 5x5, 3x3 on occasion. In fact, Bill will even take Matchel as an example, and he'd break it out into 8 small fields depending on the day of the week. Other days of the week he'd break it into 2 fields and utilize it on going across the field for 7v7.
Thank you. And what about the comment that I saw in our report, although I just got the stats recently, that the fields aren't used on weekends?
It's a very valid comment. I'll speak to youth first of all. I know that youth has always traditionally organised its soccer during the course of the week to accommodate parents in general. As we get into the senior, and by the senior I'm referring to the competitive rep players, so your 11-year-olds and forward, and all of the competitive adults, the leagues completely dictate that we play at 9 o'clock. We do play games on the weekend. We play games at 7 o'clock on a Sunday, and we play all our cup games on a Sunday. We have to let the field rest on a Saturday anyway, by agreement with town, to make sure that the field isn't ripped up by us. But we do run all of our tournaments on a Saturday. And in light of tournaments, maybe I'll give a dig for, tourism in Aurora. I hope you're all going to come out and watch the British Army play on the 3rd of June. 3 years in a row that they've come, and that's a Saturday, 3 o'clock. I will send you an invitation. But the Aurora Soccer Club has been doing sport tourism for 3 decades. We've had them in from Peru, we've had them in from Italy, all over the States, Aurora, Colorado, Aurora, Chicago. So this is something we've been doing for a long time.
Thank you. And do you use the artificial turf field at St. Max?
When we can get our little hands on it, we try to. It's very hard. It's multi-use already, so I think we've got, Brian, 5, 6 uses. So we've got it for 5 or 6 pre-season games, and that's kind of about it.
Yes, it's definitely multi-use. But you're not against artificial turf fields?
Not in the slightest.
Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. The location of the Hallmark lands are ideal because they're relatively close to the club. And if we use those for another purpose, then you're going to miss that opportunity. So if that's one of the prime reasons you're here, to let us know that you have an interest in those fields as well, that location.
Absolutely. I can't delegate out of both sides of my mouth, so I'm here for soccer, right? I respect the stress that you're all under to try and figure this out. It's pretty obvious. I stated that, as some of you who know from the committee. It's not an easy call that you have. So we have a demand. There seems to be a decision that's made that we move that to recreational fields. We believe that we should be sitting on one of those slots on that field as a minimum. Beyond that, I'd continue to recommend we should look outside of town to get our hands on a large block of playing areas, whether it's in King, West Gwillimbury, Stouffville. That would certainly be a recommendation that I would make to you to consider.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose, for being here tonight. And I think we can all agree that there certainly is a deficit when it comes to supporting the needs of all of our organizations. Since I've been on council, both the 2010 as well as the 2016 Parks and Rec Master Plan have sort of outlaid the fact that we need to purchase more land in order to meet the needs of soccer, baseball, hockey, etc. One of the recommendations that came out of the most recent Parks and Rec Master Plan is for the development of a sports complex with 3 lit fields that you alluded to earlier. Your thoughts, and I don't know if you had a chance to think about it, but would soccer still be advocating for those 3 lit fields if indeed council moved and put one in Hallmark?
If we get a lit field in Hallmark, and particularly if it's actually artificial turf, and you give us primary access in the key hours, and the key hours for us are 7 till 11, I don't think that we would have a serious capacity issue. Would we still end up having to rent the odd field outside of town? I suspect so, because of scheduling. I think you know what it's like to try and move some of these eggshells around. And we would decidedly support you in trying to turn the Hallmark building itself into some form of a multiplex. I think that'd be fantastic. It's in a great location. It ties itself into things I've heard you talk about. I watch your videos from time to time. Perhaps, but yeah, you guys are all superstars. The revitalization of the downtown core. Fantastic. Close proximity to Yonge Street, particularly getting our mummies and our daddies and our adults playing sport and then participating commercially in that Yonge Street corridor and perhaps even bypassing it using Industrial Parkway. Fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Ambrose, for raising some good points, and I heard your suggestions during the Parks and Rec committee meeting, and those were good perspectives as well. My question to you is, it seems, and I want to preface this by saying it's unfortunate that even we all value baseball as well as soccer, and it's unfortunate that it's ending up pitting one sport against the other because one organization feels the urgent need, or both organizations feel the urgent need to build something faster. Is it feasible, or is it really a good idea to build one soccer pitch and one diamond in one area? Isn't it more practical and, for practical intents and purposes, better to have two of one sport as opposed to a compromise where you don't really get 100% maximum usage or utility with the one-on-one design?
You're giving me the choice?
I thought that's what you're getting at, either that or
If
you're
you're
pitching for
giving me
two.
the choice, let's stick 2 soccer fields into the Hallmark facility.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
I'll gladly even come over myself and rip up the grass for you over at Fleury. Sorry again, Alistair, you're going to go mad with me. And then you get ostensibly 3 baseball diamonds within a home run of each other, excuse the pun, over by the rec facility on Aurora Heights. And we get 3 soccer fields, again, excuse the pun, a nice goal kick out within, screeching distance of each other on Industrial Parkway. So if that answers your question, then certainly 3 and 3 I think would be phenomenal.
So a one-on-one is not what you're really, that's not the option that you're looking for.
One-on-one to me is the compromise, as I said earlier on. We're willing to compromise. But if we're looking to be able to hold tournaments and having these things side by each is the way to go, then let's change the budget ever so slightly and let's smack in 2 diamonds over in Fleury and let's put 2 soccer fields into Hallmark.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Tom.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. The Sark turf field was completed and is being used this spring for the first time. I think Mr. Downey is nodding his head, so that's correct. Have you been able to secure any time on the new turf field at the Sark?
As of yet, no. It's in very high demand, as I'm sure you can appreciate, with Shepherd's Bush going offline and hopefully getting back online this year. And obviously we've got quite an upsurge in our youth with League One and also with the competitive rep programs, or OPDL as they're now called, maximising the use of those fields. On occasion, I know Bill will let us get our hands on it, but it's going to be almost last minute where they reschedule a game.
Thank you very much.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very
Okay.
much for coming out.
I believe, by the way, your wife was a fantastic soccer player and she played under Eddie Boyle.
Okay,
for many years.
no bringing wives into this, all right? Thank
The only reason I'm here, Mayor, is because Paula is sitting behind me, I assure you. So.
Thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Ambrose. All in favor of receipt and refer, please. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We had the additional 2 delegates. One was for David Hurd and the other was for Sport Aurora, Mr. Steve Kimmer. I don't see Mr. Hurd here. So we'll move to the Sport Aurora delegation, please. Steve Kimmer and Reg Chappell. Gentlemen, I'll remind you have 5 minutes, and if you could introduce yourselves, and I forgot to do that for the others, I apologize.
I'm letting him do the talking so it'll go quicker.
Mayor Daw, members of council. Beside me is Steve Kimmer, president of Sport Aurora. My name is Reg Chappell, and I come before you tonight as vice president of Sport Aurora, representing 40 member sport organizations. The topic, of course, is about land acquisition and deployment. The Hallmark land is one example of many conflicts that are on the horizon as this town grows to 90,000, and we're concerned. The question is, how are we going to collaboratively handle the many future demands that come before council? Sport Aurora believes we need a plan and a process to grow a healthy community, one that the next generation of councillors cannot easily change based on the political wind. Aurora certainly needs a balance between business and healthy, active community. Unfortunately, over many previous councils, we are lacking sufficient property for recreation and sport purposes. Children need to be taught about health, physical literacy, and encouraged to be active. Teenagers need teams because without them, they form gangs to fill their spare time. Quality coaches are needed to guide our children because without them, the gang leader takes control. Now that Aurora is 50% adults, we need a strategy to meet the needs of the active lifestyle. This isn't my opinion. It's clearly identified in the most current version of the Parks, Recreation and Cultural Master Plan. If Council indeed wants Aurora to be Canada's most active community, we believe that a healthy and active community attracts residents and businesses. It has to grow its capacity to do so. The issue before you tonight is land and what to do with that land. Once again, according to the Culture and Recreation Master Plan, there's a shortfall of land to build a healthy, active community. One recommendation from this approved document was to purchase land, and Council put that in place with the Hallmark land purchase in 2015. And yes, we should always be thinking about repurposing land as needs change, but this is not a solution. Waiting to buy land later when costs escalate is just poor business. The Hallmark purchase has the support of all people who care about a healthy, active community, and the members of Sport Aurora applaud you for it. The Council, in their wisdom, has approved a sport plan. Together, we should be building and implementing our sport plan. The most experienced sport experts are among the 40 Sport Aurora member organizations. These members have proven they can work together for the common good of the community. Sport Aurora sits on the Parks and Recreation Culture Advisory Committee and heard the strengths of the proposed use of lands and voted in favor of current recommendations. We stand by that decision tonight and reiterate, if we are ever to meet the needs of a growing community, we need to support the Culture and Recreation Master Plan recommendations to acquire more land for recreation purposes. Selling the Hallmark land out from underneath sport is regressive and will put the community further behind its attempt to catch up to the shortfall. It is also financially unsound, as any property within this town is going to be more expensive a year from now than it is today. We trust that every effort has been made by the town to acquire land at a price that is acceptable. Is there a better approach? Perhaps there is, but Sport Aurora has not been asked. One aspect of this unfolding controversy is a recommendation to review best practices of other communities, like Waterloo. Building a strategy with input from sport is a very sensible thing to do as we grow and are challenged with competing interests. Sport Aurora and its members stand ready to continue to assist you in helping to build the future and lay a strong foundation for sport, recreation, and physical activity through the sport plan. We urge you to support the use of Hallmark lands according to the Parks and Recreation Cultural Master Plan. We urge you to support the community recommendations from the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Advisory Committee about the use of Hallmark lands, and we encourage you to consider Sport Aurora's offer to assist in building a strategy to avoid future divisive conflicts over land acquisition and deployment through a field strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Council, may I first have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Humphrey, thank you. Councillor Tom. Comments or questions for either Reg or Steve? Councillor Maracas, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Reg and Stephen, thank you very much for coming. You mentioned the master plan, Parks and Rec master plan. In it, it does state that the town should continue to consult with user groups and representatives of the sport and recreation sector so that the town remains apprised of emerging needs. And I'm sure you all agree with that statement. So, I mean, I think that moving forward, that as a council, the head of council should meet on a quarterly basis at minimum with the heads of every organization so we can continue to be apprised of those emerging needs. And would that be a fair statement? Would you agree with that?
Agreed.
Thank you. So as you stated, and I think many of us have stated, that I think we're all looking forward as we move forward to continue to work together to make sure that we meet those needs of our sporting community. So thank you very much for coming tonight.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for coming this evening, and I hear you loud and clear, and absolutely we need to work hand in hand closely with all our sports groups and yourselves for sure. Just to clarify, from my perspective, that land was purchased by the municipality for recreational use and nothing else. Really, I don't, there's been some other discussion about that from my perspective, and I think many around the table, this is what we need to do. That land needs to be used for recreational purposes. Do you have any comments. You made that clear in your statement, but if you'd like to add to that. But
Well, I think, I know with conversations with Mr. Downey, that was, I think, his thinking behind it.
ours too.
Ours too. And I want to remind everybody, in 2015, August 11th, Sport Aurora made a presentation to council where we visually demonstrated what not only could the lands be used for, but also the interior of the building that's there. So this has been on the table for since 2015, and there's been lots of discussion about it. So this is it's not like council's being rushed into this particular scenario, okay? So I think that regardless of what decision this council makes, the one decision we are most opposed to is selling that land underneath sports feet.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you both for delegating. And, given your unique position here, and you both were part of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee discussions, you've heard both sides in terms of the need for baseball, the need for soccer, and I guess really the issue is the timing, and really, essentially timing is the main issue. What would Sport Aurora's recommendation be based on the sport plan and the master plan that we have on the table? Can I put you on the spot?
Well, of course. We need fields. Soccer needs fields, baseball needs fields, but based on my position, our position is that you as council have staff, and you sent this back to them 3 weeks ago to look at, to revise, and they came back with a recommendation. We've had a long association with the staff, Mr. Downey in particular, and we've always trusted that he's trying to do that. Staff for Aurora are doing the right thing, both for the individual organizations and from a philosophical point of view. They try to look at the 30,000-foot view. And so when their recommendation came back, based on the information that they've been presented, that to put 2 ball diamonds there made most sense, and they knew full well there would be repercussions publicly and from within that weren't going to be like, they made the tough decision. And we just supported that. You make tough decisions, not everyone's going to be happy, but you're moving forward. And there were recommendations as well to start the repurposing of other pieces of property that Aurora owns, right? Again, our biggest problem with the whole process was that last week there was a delegation saying, well, let's sell the damn thing. That just seems spiteful to me, all right? If we're not going to get the land, well, nobody gets it. That's just not the right approach, all right? So the land needs to be used. This council will make the decision as long as sport is on that land, whether it's soccer or whether it's baseball or a combination. We're happy because we know the biggest problem is availability of facility right now. And again, if we're going to be 90,000 people in the next number of years, we've got to catch up. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts. And so you are going forward from here in favor of adopting a strategy that would provide sports facilities, ball diamonds, running tracks, and other facilities for the use of outdoor fields. And the idea is to collaborate with people of all ages, of all sports, and what is affordable. And that is basically what an outdoor sports field strategy is. And that's what I was the one saying last week. And I know you looked at me, Reg, when I brought that up. And I thought it was a very good thing. In fact, I thought it's something we should have adopted perhaps a decade ago when we realized we have a serious shortage. And it works quite successfully. And I'm sorry that the suggestion of other possibilities is pulling fields out from underneath you. You're so close to it. But, I think it's fair that we do our due diligence. And if we had done this we would have done this back in 2015. We would have addressed it then. And until we've been waiting 3 years, and now we brought this forward. So the recommendation is 2 ball diamonds, and we still have issues and problems with lots of other growth and things going forward.
If this goes back to staff, if this council decides that they're going to revisit, then we're happy to listen to the alternatives. All we did is we supported staff's recommendations because we have a trust factor in that respect. If there are any new fields, whether they're rectangular fields or ball diamonds, specifically rectangular, every new field that's ever produced in this town should be multi-purpose and it should be artificial. That gives you and they pay for themselves within a few years. So if you're going to create a strategy, then it has to have that as part of it. Right? Move forward, make them multi-purpose, let everybody play on it, but make them artificial so that you start earlier in the season, you end later. It just makes so much more sense.
Councillor?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just Councillor Marcus.
You can go ahead if you want to go first time. No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephen, you just mentioned about moving to artificial turf, and I couldn't agree more. As far as when we talk about repurposing, what we need to look at is adding lights to fields, changing from grass to artificial turf, and that way we can up our usage for our organization. So I will agree with you on that 100%, and I think that's how we repurpose. But I mean, I fully support and agree with the majority of people. What they're saying is that we're in a deficit, and we need more fields. We need more rectangular, and we need more baseball. Our master plan states 1 baseball diamond and three rectangular fields, and we need them. So,
dealing with the lights issue with the public, that's your problem, because you're going to get some fight back on that. But when they're put up and they get used to it, there have been very few complaints.
Thank you very much.
Councillor? Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. I just want to address the concept of selling the land. I won't speak for council. They seem to do that pretty well for themselves. I certainly do not support that concept. I think that we bought that land specifically for recreational purposes, and that's certainly my opinion as to how it should be used. And I think that we did our due diligence in 2015. And we had a pretty robust discussion, as I recall. But I think in fairness to the soccer, to the ASC, Aurora Soccer Club, is that correct? They're not suggesting selling that land. So unless I misunderstood what you said, okay, then I...
Last week at council, making that suggestion.
Okay, then I, certainly their official position, as far as I understand, is that land is kept. And I certainly support that concept. What we do with it, obviously, is a different issue, but certainly keeping it for recreational purposes, I think, is an appropriate place to put it. That was one of the discussion points we had. It's away from residential areas, away from impacting on people's enjoyment of their backyard at night. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming out. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
I wanted to ask another question.
Yes, gentlemen? Apparently you're not dismissed.
Sorry. We usually let the mayor have a chance to speak, and then if anyone else wants to speak. So I did want to. Now, and this is a tough one because the other delegation said, let's look at, if I can get the words right, for solutions other than 2 ball diamonds for consideration. And your position at this time is, let's just do the 2 ball diamonds and we'll work together and work on all the other things.
We're in a tough scenario in that we want sports there, but we also have to advocate for our membership. And unfortunately, Aurora Youth Soccer has dropped out of Sport Aurora. The Aurora Soccer Club has never been a member, and left with apples to apples, we were going to advocate for our membership. Having said that, had staff presented the option of putting 2 soccer fields there, we wouldn't have argued against that if that's where they felt the need was. right? Doing their due diligence, making their decisions, they came up with that baseball needed to be serviced first.
And you did say that you work very closely with staff here.
We do.
So
But we didn't do anything with that scenario, though.
only at PRAC as member?
At PRAC, when
Okay.
it was brought up, and that was an emergency meeting.
All right. I think it's fair. I know it's a bit awkward, but you are advocating for your members, and we're making decisions for our community as well as you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't think there's any conflict there. Again, like I said, we advocated at that meeting based on what staff recommended.
And I don't believe there's any conflict with me either. I'm trying to resolve a huge problem, and in my eyes, we need to look holistically at all the things that we have to do rather than piece by piece, because by doing this, we're still well short of a program.
But Sport Aurora's position is we want to advocate for sport in general, and we like to try to take the 30,000-foot view as much as possible, what's good for the town of Aurora, not specifically to any one organization.
I know that Sport Aurora, and it goes back years, but we had the Leslie Street lands, and I think it was some 80 acres, and that was pegged for recreation. And as the story, I believe, we then purchased Sark and decided that we could do as much there as we had in mind. But all that land we've developed, and we made a great deal of money. We never put a cent towards acquiring land for the sports, did we?
No.
And I can see that you might be worried about as well if we're considering Hallmark again.
Well,
Okay, I'm going to cut it off there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm
This
just
is way
asking a question.
outside of-
Yeah. I just want to remind, or point out to council, the very first time I've ever addressed council was for the development of the Stuart Burnett Field. And I said to that council at that time, I said, you're not going to be remembered for the savings you made for town and how much money you put in the bank. You're going to be remembered for what you built. And so building facilities is what you'll be remembered for, whether it's soccer fields or whether it's baseball diamonds or a multi-purpose facility on Bloomington. That's going to be your legacy, and you have to remember that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kimmer and Mr. Chappell.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
out.
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt and refer, please. Opposed, that is carried. Thank you. Council will move to the consent agenda first. There's 3 items on the consent agenda. Council minutes of May the 8th, closed session, minutes of May the 8th, closed session, minutes of May the 8th. 3 sets of minutes there. Motion to approve those minutes, please. Councilors Kim and Tom. Comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Oh, I'm sorry, using your tablets, pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, that's carried. Council will move to, there's no new items tonight, so just items coming forward from General Committee last week. Any specific items that Council would like to address? Councilor Marcus.
S1, R7.
Thank you. Any others? Councilor Tom, apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. S1, R1.
That's the advertising?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Gartner,
S1, R2.
menorah lighting. Any others, please? Right now I have S1, R1, R2, and R7. Seeing no others, may I please have a motion to adopt the items not requiring separate discussion? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Humphreys, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Using your tablets, please. Councillor Humphries, using your tablet, please. Thank you. I'm assuming council would like to move item R7 forward. Councillor Abel, second. Councillor Humphries, thank you. All in favor of moving that forward? Opposed? It's carried. Someone put that on the floor for us, please. Just moving it so we can have a discussion. Firsted, moved by Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Speakers, please. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, when we started this process and we're, I think, back to budget in 2018, I asked for it to go back and look at different options when it was presented as 2 baseball diamonds. My mind was it should be 1 and 1 at that time. During this process, I've talked to many members from all organizations, some of the executive as well, and they've put forward some compelling arguments and some compelling cases for what they believe is in the best interest of not only their organization but the community as a whole. And then we look at the master plan. Our Parks and Rec master plan talks about what our needs are moving forward. It speaks to we need 1 baseball diamond and we need a complex with 3 rectangular fields and one of them being a multi-use. So when you look at that plan is our guiding document. It is our vision created for our community to move forward and how we should move forward in developing any lands that we pick up or anything that we're going to do moving forward with sports and recreation within our town. And so my opinion hasn't changed. I still believe that we should be moving forward with that vision that we've created. We put enough time, effort, staff, resources, tax dollars in creating that document. And to me, there isn't a compelling enough argument to deviate from that plan, from that vision that this town, their residents have created. And so to me, when I look at these lands, I see it as it should be 1 baseball diamond and 1 rectangular field, although I do believe that it should be a multi-use field. Because I think we need to maximize the usage that we can get out of it. Because we also have to look at it's not just about soccer, it's just not just about baseball. We have football, we have lacrosse, we have rugby. And so we need to look at all of those organizations and see how we can best utilize the space that we have. And I think that's how we best utilize it. I think it's unfortunate, though, and in some ways appalling that that not we as the town, but that some have pitted organization versus organization. And I think that's disappointing. I think that moving forward, as I've said last week, we need to look at how do we bring everyone together. And my thoughts are, as I mentioned to the delegate, is that moving forward, I think that the head of our council should sit down with the heads of all the organizations on a quarterly basis at minimum and have those discussions on how do we move forward and do the best for our community. What are those emerging needs that are continuously changing as the demographics change and as the population increases? And we need to look at all that stuff as we move forward. But at the end of the day, I think we need to go with our plan, what our master plan states. So therefore, the recommendation that is in front of us tonight, I will not be able to support. And it's not because I don't think that baseball needs a diamond. I think that they need a diamond 100%. But I also think that soccer needs a field. I think lacrosse needs a field. I think football needs a field. And so therefore, in my opinion, I believe that the best usage of this land is for 1 softball, senior softball / baseball diamond, and 1 soccer / multi-use field. And that's what I will be voting for, so I won't be able to support this recommendation. And just for clarification, I know the answer, but I just want the clerk maybe to kind of state the proper procedure. So through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk, we would have to vote this down if we wanted 1 and 1. Is that correct? Or could we put an amendment on the floor?
Mr. Clerk.
If through you, Mr. Mayor, if council wanted to do that tonight, yes, it should be voted down. I would suggest to refer back to staff if there was widespread agreement with council to take this action. A referral back to staff would also be a avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and that's what I figured, and I just wanted everyone to understand that if you're voting against it, you're not necessarily voting against putting, developing these lands as sports. You might just have a different opinion. You want that 1-and-1. So the other thing that was brought up just before I finish my time is some of the data and the analysis that was brought forward to us, and I agree with one of the aspects and comments from one of our delegation is that what we're looking to build here is a Class A facility for both baseball and rectangular fields. So looking at the usage and the numbers from your Class D, Class C, I think are irrelevant. And I don't think they should factor into our decision-making process when it comes to this. And so that's why we need to look at those Class A numbers. And if you look at those Class A numbers, it changes, I think, the numbers, and it will change the way you look at it. So I would suggest to all my colleagues to take a harder look at those numbers, specifically when they talk to Class A, before you make your decision tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, I just have, at this point in time, a question for clarification. As far as I know, it was never mentioned that one of these fields that this land could accommodate a multi-use field, a Class A multi-use field?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the homework lands have been evaluated as an option of one soccer and one baseball. That was on the staff report in April to show that it would fit.
Councillor?
What I'm trying to find out is if we make it one soccer and one baseball, will one of those fields be able to be multi-use so we could have a baseball tournament on that land?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just for clarification, multi-use rectangle field would be for multi-use
rectangular sports.
There are scenarios where ball could be incorporated, but the lines, it's quite challenging. Typically, your rectangle field is very suitable to a rectangle sport. So it would not house baseball unless it was a small, low, like a younger age group for a pickup type of a T-ball, just as an open practice, but not a set game.
Thank you. So the reason for having two baseball diamonds here, one of the reasons was the ability to have tournaments. So that a multi-use field would in no way accommodate that.
That's correct.
Thank you. And could you also speak to the repurposing of fields? And did I hear moving the baseball fields out of Mitchell Park and putting in soccer fields instead?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's been some discussion certainly about Machel Field, if I'm not mistaken, was the scenario where obviously there's soccer field there's baseball that is on site. As far as utilization of that property, the soccer field at that field is very well used. It's an 11 by 11, it's a full-sized field. The baseball aspect of that property is not as utilized, it's underutilized, I'd say, and that would maybe be the option of possibly repurposing those baseball assets that are on that property into another soccer field. So there would be two soccer fields at Machel versus just one at this point. That was one of the comments and suggestions that was discussed last week.
Has that,
Councillor?
thank you, through Mr. Mayor, has that been run by soccer?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I believe when I had the conversation with Mr. Coyan, there was some discussion about the baseball or that property being two baseball diamonds. The concern with that, in our perspective, we're looking at our utilization rates, that would mean potentially losing the soccer field. And for us, it would not be an ideal scenario. losing something that is so well used versus something that is underutilized. A different scenario, instead, putting soccer at that site, pairing that up, knowing that there's another property not far that I'll actually put 3 full soccer pitches in a vicinity.
Councillor?
That's all for now, thanks.
Councillor Humphreys?
I forgot my reading glasses tonight. This is challenging. So I did note that the report that was presented to us through Mr. Mayor on April 7, 2018, there was a decision between, 2 baseball diamonds versus 1 and 1. And staff went further and did some research and came up with this. But, when I go through the report, I've gone through many times, it's so marginal, like the differences in usage. And so it comes down to, really hoping that we're making the right decisions. And all these user groups need, the usage of these fields just as much as the other. And baseball, I know, has been really hurting and turning back people, and soccer, the same thing. I know that it looks like we have, just to confirm, in our existing capital projects, they're coming, a rectangular field will be coming 2019, a new artificial turf should provide soccer with 1,500 to 1,700 hours in addition. So that's next year. Do we have an idea when that time frame will be, through Mr. Mayor? The new artificial field?
Mr. Downey, then?
You, Mr. Mayor. The artificial turf that's we're converting Shepherd's Bush, which was a standard soccer pitch, into a multi-purpose field. It's under construction right now and will be available next year. And we are putting lights on Norm Weller, and that is also scheduled for this year. So that'll be available next year as well.
Perfect. So, so soccer will have an additional field in 2019.
So soccer will have
A rectangular field.
A rectangular field available at Shepherd's Bush, because that replaces, we built the one at Stuart Burnett, which is just opening this year. But since we took Shepherd's Bush out of commission, now we're even. Once we finish Shepherd's Bush, that'll be an additional field. And then we are putting lights on at Norm Weller, and that'll bring another additional field. So in a span of 2 years, we're bringing on 3 soccer fields for play.
Okay. So at the end of sometime in 2019, we'll have soccer that will have. And I hear some grumblings in the audience. I'm not sure if they really believe that, but that's our plan, right? So if we did 1 and 1 now, then we're going to have 4 rectangular spaces to use in 2019, right? I just want to make sure we're rounding this up correctly.
If council chooses to move forward with putting a rectangular field at Hallmark, that won't be available to 2020.
Sorry, repeat
that. That will not be available until 2020 because we haven't started construction.
Okay.
We're already under construction for Shepherd's Bush, which is why we will have it available.
Okay.
And we're only putting lights on an existing soccer pitch at Norm Weller in order to increase the potential use of that facility.
Okay. No, that helps me think this through a bit more. And then relative to, and bear with me, Mr. Mayor, the intention, and there's a statement in the staff report that says, having 2 fields side by side for baseball allows for major baseball tournaments to come into town. Do we have anything like that today?
Through you,
2 fields.
Mr. Chair, we have 1 baseball diamond at Lambert Wilson, diamond number 4, and we have 1 baseball diamond at Stuart Burnett.
Right.
So they're not side by each. There are, however, softball diamonds that are, and that's in Lambert Wilson Park, but those are primarily softball diamonds.
Right. Okay, good. When's our hotel going to be built? When's that hotel going to be built? Just kidding. Okay, thank you. That's it for now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like tonight that no matter what decision I make, it's going to be a bad one. It's almost like talking to my wife or discussing with my wife. Everything I say will be wrong. But again, it's a very painful discussion because we all know that there's needs for both soccer and baseball. That said, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey or Ms. McDougall, the delegate, Mr. Ambrose, pointed out two options where diamonds could go. I think one location was in Aurora Heights, and there was another location that escapes my memory, or Machel, that was discussed last week. Can you comment on those options as to why we can't go ahead with those options, given how strongly Mr. Ambrose feels that those options are available to us for lit baseball?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the field the park he was referring to, I believe, is Fleury Park. Fleury Park presently has a senior soccer pitch, a lit senior soccer pitch in it, and a lit softball diamond in it. I believe the proposal was that we tear out the existing soccer pitch out of Fleury Park and increase the size of the existing diamond in Fleury, and then add the construction of an additional diamond in Fleury in order to address the need for two baseball diamonds within the park. We have not looked at that. I would have to take a look at the plan to find out whether that actually could even work construction-wise. I believe the two diamonds would be, I don't believe there'd be enough land to put two diamonds in that park, but it isn't something that we had looked at since Fleury is identified as a Class A soccer pitch. It's one of the few Class A turf fields that we have, and so we have spent a lot of time ensuring that that is a quality turf, and we wanted to make sure that that was maintained as a quality turf. But it is something.
Excuse me, please.
I said it was a grass field. Pardon? Okay, grass is also turf. It's not artificial turf. It's grass, which is also turf. We have spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we have active grass growing on that field. However, we could take a look at it. Off the top of my head, I don't know that it would fit. It would be potentially a possibility that we could look at.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. And given the importance of this decision, and we do want to uncover look under every stone for every possibility. If staff were to go ahead and take a look at those options to add two lit diamonds in those areas, and given that the soccer club is willing to forego the use of one soccer pitch there as a trade-off, could staff, would it be feasible for staff to come back with, after analysis of those two areas, and if we moved forward with that plan for diamonds, could that still be ready for late 2019, early 2020, as per staff's timelines from last week?
Mr. Downey?
Our concern would be, first of all, in order for us to move forward with that project, we'd have to, first of all, find out whether physically it could fit, whether or not there was sufficient servicing available on that site. As you know, it is in a floodplain, so we are concerned that we would be able to actually put up sufficient fencing, although there is already fencing in there. We wanted to make sure we'd have to talk to the Conservation Authority to make sure that could happen. And so all of that takes time and consultation with the Conservation Authority. But the first thing we would do is to see if it could physically actually go on that property. I suspect not, but I could be wrong. So that would be the first thing we would take a look at, whether or not it could physically fit. And that could be done very quickly. We could then come back to council and say, it doesn't work. Now what would you like us to try?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one last question on that then. It is, given that we haven't put out a tender for these baseball diamonds, why would it take a much longer time should the dimensions fit?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would have to go through research of that property to determine where the services are, what additional services we were going to need, and so that would have to be surveyed. The diamond would go down, would be out of use. The soccer field would be out of use. So we'd have to make sure we communicated to the groups that that was taking place. We could be doing that while we are entering into a contract for a landscape architect to redesign the park. And move forward with that reconstruction. So I'm concerned about the timelines and being able to meet those timelines. But as I say, my first concern is whether or not it could actually fit into the park. So once we had that determination, we could then give you a better timeline if it works.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Downey. And, you know, my one last question would be, you know, we read the staff report earlier today, and the delegate also, you know, spoke about Class A, B, and C, and in the report not really comparing, and those of us who are reviewing not comparing apples to apples, but rather apples to oranges. Given what you heard from Mr. Ambrose and these different Class A, Bs, and Cs and so forth, is the staff recommendation based on, is the target client youth, or is it a mixture of youth and adult? Can you just give us kind of some context in terms of the recommendations and your comments on Mr. Ambrose in terms of apples to oranges, please?
Go ahead.
Ms. McDougall?
Oh, good. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The stats that are pulled and that were drawn, our conclusions, were pulled from all of our user groups. So it wasn't just from the youth groups, so therefore it wasn't a prioritization given to youth. It was the stats were on the sheet here. They don't disclose to us as to where the numbers come from. My staff would have pulled how and the total numbers of use for those fields, whether you're an adult group or whether you're a youth group.
Thank you. And your recommendation would be for 2 baseball diamonds, given the statistics?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Based on the review, and if I may go back just quickly, I'll quickly summarize where and how the staff arrived at the conclusion we did. And obviously there was already some work, lots of work done from Mr. Downey prior to me arriving. But I felt it's important in why Council's direction was to go back and review some numbers and data. The master plan in 2016 is certainly a driving document we use to give us some guidance. But it's also important as numbers and demographics continually change, utilization rates continually change, to update and understand what that data is. So the staff pulled the data from the last 3 years, just so that we could see some trending, see some information as it relates to the utilization of those sports. Any given year, something can spike and drop off. So it was important to at least understand that information or to revalidate where we stand. In looking at also what Council has approved as capital projects on the horizon, and in very short order in 2019 with another multi-use rectangle field coming on board, lights being added to Norm Weller, knowing that both sports need assets, looking at the long range or the planning of that over the next couple of years, then to look at the next phase of 5 years, 10 years out, even more. The short-term turnaround or the short-term goal to us looking at the stats and information shows both a need for soccer in the large field, and certainly in the large field, and certainly baseball was in softball. I have an imminent need. From a staff's direction and staff recommendation, looking at the fact that in the short turnaround, within a year's time, there is a multi-use field being added to the compilation or the collection of fields for rectangle use, as well as the Norm Weller. It added a number of hours that could be utilized for various user groups on that multi-use field. Paralleling that, there isn't that on the horizon for baseball. So looking at the need that was void at this point of addressing a baseball need moving forward, prioritization from a staff perspective and what was being presented to the Parks Recreation Committee was looking at baseball needing a need to be addressed. There wasn't one that was approved yet on Council's plans. We then challenged that with the conversations with regards to sport tourism, the opportunity for the tournament use opportunity. Both sports would agree that having multiple fields adjacent to each other serves them both a purpose. Putting one and one, yes, going backwards 2016 plan suggests so, but looking at a long-range plan, knowing that there's soccer coming on the horizon, fields already coming on the horizon in the short order, it made most suitable to the staff that 2 diamonds would be solving a need in the next year or 2. Not to mention the fact that we do and recommend repurposing fields, looking at the long range, looking at where we are going in the next 10 to 15 years or beyond as to managing future growth, future need. We agree to all of that. We acknowledge that's necessary. But looking at today's needs, looking at what's even needed in the next year or 2, we felt that soccer was being proposed to have some element being addressed, yet baseball was not. So it was important for us to recommend and support, standing behind a support for baseball at this time.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. That was a very detailed response, and I appreciate that. I'll wait to, looks like there's a few of my councillors ready to speak, and, at this time, I have to agree, whether it's soccer or baseball, it has to be 2 of soccer or 2 of baseball. I don't think 1-on-1 is an option. For tournament play, to get the most bang for the buck, you have to have a concentrated playing area for one particular sport. It might be maybe a morbid example, but every time I think about this, I think about the old King Solomon story about 2 women bringing a baby, and well, I don't think I want to go there, but it's just splitting the lands for one purpose and then for another. I don't think it maximizes the utility for either sport. It's a compromise, but I don't think in the interest of either organization or sport, a compromise is the best solution. Whether it be just one organization waiting a year, I think having a concentrated sports field is the best. So I'll go for the 2 baseball diamond option for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Again, it's a great turnout. It shows that the community is engaged, and certainly the sport community is engaged. And I know council always appreciates when the chamber is full. It's not always full, but obviously we appreciate when people come out and voice their opinion. I should say that it was mentioned by the delegate, my wife is a hell of a soccer player still, and she plays for Richmond Hill, so maybe have to work on that. But and I should also say that, and I'll probably not be the most popular guy in the room, that I support Tottenham Hotspur, so I'll leave it at that. Never heard of him. And as I mentioned last week at committee, I don't believe that this is an issue about pitting one group of one sports group in our town against another. Obviously, it's a bit of an unenviable task sitting around the council table when these issues come up, because we do have to make tough decisions. But certainly, from my perspective, and I know from the perspective of my colleagues, we try to make the decisions that we feel are in the best interest of the town as a whole, and certainly with respect to sports, you know, for the kids of Aurora and adults who want to be active and play. I have a couple of questions. So Councilor Maracas in his comments referred to the sports master plan or the Parks and Rec master plan. And in our report, it talks about, and I think staff have already answered questions from Councillor Humphreys regarding the multi-use field that's going to be completed at Shepherd's Bush and the lighting of Norm Weller Park, and how that's going to increase capacity on the standard 11v11 lit field capacity. And my question for staff is, in future capital budgets, I'm not sure if there's any money allocated, so perhaps staff can let me know, for additional lighting of the current unlit standard 11v11 fields to be converted to a lit standard 11v11 field. So I just want to know if staff can confirm if that's in our capital plan moving forward.
Mr. Downey, would you know that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do not have plans to light any of the other existing fields. We recommended moving forward with Norm Weller because of its location and its proximity, or the lack of proximity of residential development adjacent to it. So if we were going to introduce lights into a particular site, we certainly could take some direction from council, and we would call a public meeting, and we want to make sure that we got lots of input from the public with regards to the introduction of lights. We find that it does generate quite a bit of discussion within the community, so we are very conscious of introducing something new. But so it's nothing that we have contemplated at this point. Norm Weller was the last one.
Thank you. And I think council would probably appreciate maybe having another look at that. Certainly there's more appropriate areas than others for lights. And so, as you just mentioned, I think, but if we're talking about increasing capacity for soccer, maybe that's something that we can take a look at. Again, if there's other parks, I'm just looking at the master plan list. Other than Norman Weller, there's Confederation, Craddock, Lambert Wilson, Machel Park, and Summit Park. Have I missed any? Confederation Park, Craddock Park, Lambert Wilson Park, Machel Park, and Summit Park. Because Norm Weller's currently
Apologize, Mr. Mayor. I believe that's the list.
Thank you. The Parks and Rec Master Plan also talks about, as Councilor Maracas mentioned, the recommendation, one of the recommendations which has been fulfilled, which is a turf field at Stuart Burnett at the SARC. The other recommendation was to work with our educational partners, and the last recommendation, or the first one, I guess I should say, was to establish a sports field complex containing a minimum of 3 lit full-size rectangular fields and supported by appropriate facilities, and that one of those fields should be designed as a multi-use field. And so to me, that complex would create, again, we talk a lot about sport tourism, you know, to me that if we could follow through on that, that would be, you know, massive for sports tourism in Aurora. As you mentioned, having fields and high quality lit fields, especially if one's multi-use, all bunched together, it increases the capacity for tournaments and so forth. If as has been kind of suggested, that if we use the 1-in-1 option, one ball diamond and one lit field, and potentially a lit turf field, like an artificial turf field, would there be a justification for that recommendation moving forward? So in other words, if we build a turf multi-use field at the Hallmark lands in addition to the ball diamond, will there be a need for the 3 soccer field multi-use complex that's envisioned in the sport plan?
Through Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't want to say no to that. I would want to have a discussion with the user groups to reconfirm that position. They did identify it as a position within the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We're going under review, so I wouldn't say that that was going to satisfy it one way or the other without going back to them and having discussion. because I still believe that there is a need for a number, or at least 3 fields in close proximity. And somehow we should try to make that happen.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. I think the recommendation from the Parks and Rec Master Plan is spot on, and I think that we need to be working towards getting that 3-field complex realized with a multi-use field. And I'm running up on time, so I guess I'll have to save my comments for the second time around. But I think before we decide against putting 2 ball diamonds, we should think about the impacts of the decision of potentially putting a rectangular artificial turf multi-use field at the Hallmark lands with respect to the recommendation from the Parks and Rec Master Plan. And so, you know, again, I'm running up on time, so I'll save my additional comments for the second round.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. You know, I certainly agree that the Parks and Rec Master Plan should serve as a basis for our decision-making. A lot of time and effort went into the development of it. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, as mentioned numerous times already, one of the recommendations was to establish a sports field complex containing a minimum of 3 lit fields. When this was completed, did you have some thoughts about where that could potentially go in Aurora, and are you at liberty to share where you think would be an ideal spot?
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, this is just my thoughts. So the thought that I had with regards to it was when we were looking at a multi-sport recreation facility in the Bloomington lands, I think we should enter into discussions with Cardinal Carter with regards to doing a similar partnership with Cardinal Carter that we did with St. Max, and make that a premier field. We would then add 2 additional pitches within those lands at Bloomington, in support of getting 3 fields in the same location, and then move forward with the multi-purpose recreation facility to help support that for change rooms and washrooms and that type of thing. The other thing is that we would then be able to use the parking at Cardinal Carter, and we'd be able to use the parking at the board office. And so we would hopefully be using less land, less valuable land in the development of a parking lot in order to support those activities.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. And that's always been my understanding, and I share that vision as well. We've talked about the Bloomington lands since 2011, and I know there's many people in this room that would have liked to have seen movement on it, but as much as we've advocated for those lands, is still held up by the province. But I still believe that sooner rather than later we'll have an opportunity to acquire them. And the vision has always been a complex there with multi-sport fields, a sort of a center of excellence, and I believe that still is the vision of council and yourself. And so that's why, you know, for myself, I don't necessarily want to compromise on the Hallmark lands, because I see an opportunity to find an optimal solution for both soccer, baseball, and other sports. In this case, Hallmark would be the establishment of the 2 baseball diamonds, and while it's been referred that the Parks and Rec Master Plan only calls for 1 baseball diamond, well, that's for a population of 64,000. The service level is 1 baseball diamond for every 3,000 residents in Aurora, as per our Parks and Rec Master Plan. And as Ms. McDougall indicated, you know, the staff recommendation is looking to the future, is looking that when Aurora has 70, 80, and even 90,000 people, we're going to need more diamonds. So where are you going to put it? Rather than have compromises and many different facilities of 1 and 1 and 1, then let's work towards a strategy that optimizes the various land uses. And so for me, you know, going forward, I support having 2 baseball diamonds at Hallmark, just like I support the development of the 3 lit fields at Bloomington, and partnering with Cardinal Carter like we did at Maximilian Colby. That's been the plan. That's been the plan since I've been on council, and I don't want to see us deviate from it. I'm supportive of sport. Every decision that's come before us, I've supported. You know, I see the deficit that is for not just soccer and baseball, but many of them. Our Parks and Rec Master Plan calls for a minimum of 25 acres to be purchased by the town by 2020. We're still struggling to see that through because of the cost of land in Aurora. It's unfortunate, but when I came on council, we inherited that deficit because unfortunately previous councils didn't purchase the land. I know Mr. Downey talks about the fact that at one time he had an opportunity to buy land at the Leslie and Wellington area for $100,000 an acre. The council of the day said no, and so that's why we have that deficit today.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to have a little more information to make the best decision going forward. I had asked Mr. Downey for the acquirement lands back in 2011 to be circulated. Could I ask through you, Mr. Chair, if that's available?
Mr. Downey? Or actually, I'm going to go to the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we were working on that request, and unfortunately, was it in-camera closed session? We have to look at what can be released and what can't be, because there was a bunch of confidential information in that report.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, has there been any update from that acquirement since that time?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to be careful of what I can and can't discuss here, but we had presented a report back in 2011 in closed session, and at that time we had identified 43 properties, potential purchase or lease or some type of arrangement with regards to use for recreational purposes. Some of the properties that were identified, there has been some action taken on.
So there's been no update since?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's been no update.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that sports fields, open fields, because they're used primarily for 4 months, and the other 8 months they're dormant due to winter activity. We often consider using the cheapest land available because you're not using it that much. And so I recall last week we talked a lot about floodplains and moraine. Through you, Mr. Chair, I had asked Mr. Ramuno to give us some information, circulate on the moraine and the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan with the uses of the land. Could I ask him to speak on that?
Mr. Ramuno?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just with respect to designations, the Oak Ridges Moraine Plan does identify sort of settlement area, and I think Mr. Councilor Abel referred to that last week, and that is a majority of the town is identified as settlement area, which allows urban development. There is a portion in the southeast quadrant of town which is identified as non-settlement area, and urban development isn't allowed. I mean, the Oak Ridges Moraine Plan does speak to allowing some recreational facilities, but as Mr. Downey spoke to it last week, we haven't received a definitive response from the province with respect to building any facilities, community centers, or buildings, large-scale buildings within the non-settlement area of the moraine. So that is that was a question that came up last week. In addition, just to add, I mean, that portion of town is not within our service boundaries, so municipal water and sanitary services aren't available in that quadrant of town.
Councillor?
Thank you. So we could build sports fields on there. If there's no buildings, it would be a go. And we see that all through the moraine. I mean, there's golf courses, etc. Through you, Mr. Chair, has anyone contacted King on regards to participating per building 2 ball diamonds?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have, or I personally have been in discussion with our adjacent municipalities with regards to partnership opportunities throughout the years. We have not specifically discussed ball diamonds with King, but we have discussed sharing other potential recreation uses with King. We can certainly have that conversation. I'm not aware of what King's plans are for building additional ball diamonds or their capacity to do so.
Councillor?
Thank you. And the idea, I think, with going forward with a strategy, and we haven't adopted one yet, is to consider a team approach, and that was what we learned from the JOC, was to get the expertise of several fields in our staff to put forward a report to give our council the best opportunity and our public of what options are available. One of the main things is to provide opportunities for community field sport groups to provide input into future field sport strategies, policies, procedures, and budget priorities. So I think this is what our delegates were speaking to. They were letting us know that they would like to be included in those conversations. They're not necessarily with Sport Aurora, but they are part of our community. And I think it's very important that we listen and take this in as we go and strategize and go forward. We have lands right here in Aurora at Vandorf and Bayview. They're for sale. I talked to the agent today, 33 acres. That would come pretty close to meeting the shortfall that we have. It's tableland, and we could put a really numerous fields that would meet everyone's concerns and priorities. And these are the sort of things that we don't have as a council. Last week we talked about floodplains weren't viable. Moraine is not viable, but indeed they are viable places for our parks. And in fact, that's why we put our fields on floodplains, and we have them all through Aurora. Fleury, Machel, St. Andrews, they're used because you can't build on them. And that's why we put those fields there. Great fields. Baseball has told us very clearly that they want 2 ball diamonds. And we have to do our due diligence and present all the options. One was suggested Fleury could be done. And if you're talking to our economic team within our town, they will tell you that that would be great to have tournaments right there in the downtown revitalization core. So imagine the baseball could get sponsors from all the bars and restaurants that are there. So there are great positive ideas of considering that as an option, and also considering where the potential is for all the fields. And if we get input from all our groups, then we might be able to understand better exactly what we have and how we will go about and strategize. I did ask our economic development what he could do with a 13-acre business park, and he said that it's a high priority for a medical campus, and it would be, it's been well established. So this is what I mean by talking with our planner about the moraine, economic, about potential and downtown revitalization.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Before I go around for a second time, a couple of comments. First of all, Ms. McDougall, if I may, there was a comment made on the confidence of the data that was used. And I think you did answer that already, but are you confident in the comparison data over the 3-year period, or is this worth another look?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am confident that our staff have pulled this information and have revisited and challenged this data. Mr. Downey and I also had questions. We had them revisit just a few things, but they've looked at the numbers and they are solid numbers as far as utilization goes. This information, in addition to utilization, did come as well. Some of the feedback was coming from the user groups themselves. So it wasn't just our system spitting out information. We had some feedback from the user groups about their use and when they booked things and when they had to cancel. So the cancellations are noted in here, and that is adjusted the percentages based on that information.
Thank you. We've made a couple of comments on master plans and adherence to master plans, and by all means we should as much as possible, although I think all master plans do have wording in there to allow change if needed. And I'll remind council that just a couple of hours ago we were at the Coates, the new Coates Park in town, the Mavernack Park, which was decidedly not in the master plan. So council made a decision to put a park there. So council does indeed, based on needs, change what is in a master plan. So we can do that. At this point, it was unanimous from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and I asked the chair of that committee at General Committee last week if he felt that the procedure at that meeting was properly followed, and he felt that it was, and our clerk was there as well. He agreed, he concurred with that. At this point, I am supporting the baseball because to me, the information of our staff, the discussion at the Parks and Recreation Committee leads me to that way. If council is of a mind to send this back to staff to have a further discussion to get more input, I would be happy with that. We could always use more input. I'm not sure if it would change anything, but it never hurts to have some more information. I'll go around for a second time. I have Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a quick question, and I just want to be clear. When we were, through you, Mr. Mayor, too, when we were collecting the data, and it's accurate data through systems and feedback from the user groups, did we meet with each user group one-on-one to have that thorough discussion before the full report was put together, or just like that answer? I just want to know if we've done that.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, our staff had sent out an email to all of our user groups. Same questions, standardized to all groups as far as their feedback. Based on certain asks, and certain groups have actually come in and met with staff to verify the information. We have gone over that with them just to run the numbers by them as well, and to have that conversation, to share where our numbers have, what they've presented as they've asked for that additional info. But the email went out to all user groups, very standardized questioning and information. So we were at least treating each group equal from how we gathered the data.
Perfect. And through Mr. Mayor, did everyone respond? Did you get responses from all the user groups?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, all of our user groups that we had sourced for the summer fields did respond.
Councillor.
Okay, that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I give my opinion on this, I'd like to give it a little history. I believe Mr. Downey and I are the only ones that have been here for most of this history. In the late 1990s, the City Council purchased that land that we're talking about, south of Wellington, east of Leslie, and it was purchased for rec purposes. But there was a problem with that land. It was landlocked. That means we couldn't get to use that land until the developers north of there did their subdivisions and their roads. So what could the council do? They bought the Stuart Burnett land. And it was a great solution, and it was decided because we had that land for rec, we would make the Leslie Street Lands Business Park. A very wise decision, because we need employment lands, we need the taxes, we need the jobs. The next thing that happened was the Council of 2006 came in. They were responsible for planning the 2C lands. There were going to be 8,000 people coming into the 2C lands. Well, what a perfect place to buy recreational land. It was part of our planning of the 2C lands to buy rec land from the developers. The next council came in and said, well, the developers weren't very happy, and they said, well, no, we don't need to buy rec land in this quadrant of our town. An unfortunate mistake. Mr. Downey went forward, did a comprehensive research of everything that was possible to build. Nothing was acceptable. We pinned our hopes on the Oak Ridges Moraine. The province has said no. The Oak Ridges Moraine is a very important ecological feature. It recharges and filters water that goes into our aquifer. So no, they don't want hard surfaces on the moraine. They don't want sanitary facilities on the moraine. It makes sense to me. So the next part in this very long process is that we bought the Hallmark lands. You know, that came after a very long process. A lot of work, a lot of due diligence, and in my opinion, it was the only land that was available to buy, and so we bought it for rec purposes. We have a responsibility as a council and as a town to serve the needs of our residents, to keep our residents healthy and active. So we bought the Hallmark lands. Now the next thing is we're talking about maybe buying Bloomington, buying other lands. Well, there's no assurance that we're going to be able to buy that land. We want to, it would be fantastic. Not sure where we would find the money to develop it, but it's not a done deal. It's not even, who knows? We're dealing with the government. Who knows what they're going to say? So we have a piece of land, and our rec master plan, even though I thank staff so much, the needs have changed, the demographics are changing, but we have a piece of land, and our rec master plan says we need 1 baseball diamond and 1 soccer field. And we may or may not get any other land. So I have to agree. I have to disagree with staff. Sorry to do that. Do it respectfully. You do have a lot of expertise and give us wonderful advice. But in this case, thinking about the needs of the community and thinking perhaps we'll have no other land, I have to agree that we will have 1 baseball field, 1 baseball diamond, and 1 soccer field.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And just to clarify, I think the Parks and Rec Master Plan called for an artificial turf field at Stuart Burnett Park, a 3-field sport complex, location to be determined, with one of those fields being an artificial turf multi-use, and then working with institutional partners such as the school boards. So I don't believe the master plan does call for 1 soccer field. We've fulfilled one of the recommendations for a soccer field at Stuart Burnett Park. We are going to be revamping and the Shepherd's Bush artificial turf field will be multi-use and coming online next year. And we're increasing capacity at Norman Weller with more lights. So getting back to, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit because it was mentioned that the Parks and Rec Master Plan called for 1 additional soccer field. It did, but we've already built it, and that was at Stuart Burnett Park. And then 3 additional fields in a sports complex. Building on my additional comments, I think to build a multi-use artificial turf field, say, at the Hallmark lands in addition to 1 ball diamond, to me, that throws into question the future of that 3-field complex. Because I mean, certainly we could look at it again, but there is no justification in the Parks and Rec Master Plan for 3 additional multi-use artificial turf fields, just 2. And I think that if we are judicious in looking at our current unlit standard size 11v11 soccer fields, there may be potential in the short term to increase capacity for soccer by adding lights to the most appropriate park. There might not be an appropriate park for additional lighting, but that to me sounds at least reasonable to look at. While supporting the vision of the Parks and Rec recommendation to build that 3-field complex for soccer, because again, that's going to be a hub for sport tourism. It'll increase capacity, and I think, you know, a lot of work went into that Parks and Rec master plan and certainly into the recommendations for soccer. I have to agree with Councillor Thompson with respect to why 2 ball diamonds as opposed to 1. The Minor Ball Association has come to council and indicated that right now that their current capacity is maxed out. Kids are being turned away from baseball, according to their representation numerous times at this council table. And our population is growing to 90,000 people in the next, 25 years. So I think that, taking into account the current capacity issues that the minor ball has had, the future growth of the town, which is only going to put more stress onto their capacity, and the opportunity to build 2 fields back to back for the added benefits of sport tourism is a great opportunity. And certainly, again, I don't view it as in competition with soccer. I just think that this is a great opportunity for Aurora and for the baseball and minor baseball community. Again, so my opinion is that I agree with the staff recommendation to build 2 ball diamonds at the Hallmark lands, but I wanted to stress that I also am in support of realizing the recommendation from the master plan for that soccer complex as well. And again, perhaps staff can look at, in the short term, increasing our 11v11 lit capacity by looking at the unlit fields and finding an appropriate field that we can look at, at a capital budget in the future for putting lights in, again, to increase the amount of playing time and the capacity for soccer. So I will be supporting the staff recommendation. Again, it's been mentioned, if this does go back to staff, I think that for more comments and public input, I'm fine with that as well. But I think based on the research that I've done and sitting at this chair, making a tough decision, that 2 ball diamonds at the Hallmark lands is where I think the best interest of the town lays. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. See no other speakers. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was listening to Councillor Tom. So one of the recommendations we got from the JOC audit was to have a formalized a development of standardized project management framework, which would be comprised of various disciplines that would have insight on the project. And I believe that when we're talking about something like this, we need a management team like that. And I alluded to our planner and economic as well as our Parks and Rec. I also think that we should be inviting all our user groups within the community. The project, any project is a recommendation, should have a steering committee set up at the project startup, which would prevent any one individual acting independently in a silo and making decisions. So I'm of the opinion that we should move back on the recommendations and get a full detail of all these matters. There are lands available. We don't want to talk about it. I'll tell you after, because you tell me, but I made an inquiry today. There's 33 acres available right here in town. We haven't updated in 11 years. We owe it to our community to do our due diligence on this matter and to get the best information for when we're making a report. We should understand that what the possibilities are. We're not, I don't think, unanimous in this. We could put 2 ball diamonds, as I think, and Delegate said, right behind the downtown corridor. It makes absolute sense to me. There are a number of options that we have, and each has its own repercussions that we should evaluate and then make the best informed decision from that. I appreciate the stats that came from the user groups, and that we are aware that there is a shortage of fields. And we do have a master plan that says we're well short, but what we don't have is a strategy. And I think we need some more information, and we need to involve our community. I'd made a suggestion that if we were to look at selling the Hallmark lands, that would be one of the repercussions we would have to look at. But I can see that we've been sitting and we haven't done any land acquisition, and that's 2 terms. And now we have one. We bought it in 2015. It's amazing. We did absolutely nothing for 3 years, and now here we are, right before our last 2 cycles as we go into what we commonly call an election year, lame duck, which means you don't want to make any more decisions. We're going into summer break. We're in a rush to make a decision, and we have to make the best decision going forward. So I would like to evaluate all those, and I think a good steering committee with a strategy is exactly what we need for long-term vision. I can't support 2 ball diamonds there, and I'm not opposed to using the Hallmark lands, but I would like to be able to evaluate what other options are available before we make that decision.
Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last-minute schemes are not the answer for our community. As Councillor Gartner pointed out, we don't actually have any other land. And so at the end of the day, we need to make a decision and move forward without just making promises. We actually have to make commitments. And we can't make a commitment if we don't own the land. So to say that we're going to build this, we're going to build that, that's great. Those are just promises. We're making a commitment to the community to build and do it now. And that's what the community wants, and that's what the community deserves. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, it was mentioned that the two fields, I'm looking at the picture, and to me it seems that the two fields will be softball, senior softball, not hardball.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the delegate wanted to address their junior baseball program, and so when we were looking at them, he used Optimus Park as his model. So the drawing indicates that dimension. However, as you can see, we can make it a little bit larger if we need to, but the infield and all the fencing will be to accommodate baseball as opposed to softball. But it was to support their junior baseball program.
So will it be two softball or two hardball?
So it will be a mixture of both. It'll be smaller than Stuart Burnett, but similar fencing.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, would that be similar size to the softball ones that are at Lambert Wilson?
We would be looking at larger than the softball diamonds that you would see at Lambert Wilson. Optimus Park is a bit larger than the diamonds that you find at Lambert Wilson.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, but at the end of the day, they would not be able to accommodate a full-size hardball specifications.
Through you, the land would be able to if we increased it. So that could be a discussion with the Ball Association. But this is the request that they put into us, and so we have referred these drawings based on we have done these drawings based on their request.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. It was mentioned as far as we have to look to the future, and our master plan, Councillor Thompson mentioned it and Councillor Tom mentioned it as well, as the master plan states what we currently need, and we need to look at that future, and I think that it works both ways. So when we move to 90,000 residents, not only are we going to need more than what the master plan suggests for baseball, but we're also going to need more than what it's suggesting and is written within the master plan for soccer as well, and for multi-use. And so I think if you're going to use that argument, you have to use it for both sides. And so that's why I think it cancels out. So that's when you look at this, I'll once again say, I think that in the best interest moving forward, in my opinion, is for that 1-and-1. It was mentioned that we need to be flexible, and we have been flexible when it comes to master plans. I agree. Master plans need to be flexible, just as our OP is flexible. We look at it and we say, can we be flexible? Can we move on it? But we always look at it from the aspect of how does it benefit our community? How does it make it better? How does that decision make the community better? My opinion, I don't think that I've been convinced enough to say that 2 baseball diamonds is in the best interest of the community right now. And so therefore, once again, I'll be voting against this recommendation that's on the floor today. And I'll be hopefully, if my colleagues see fit and it doesn't pass, we can move forward and put a recommendation for 1-and-1. We just need to make a decision.
Okay. Councillor Humphreys, you've already spoken twice. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I get it in terms of it's not absolute certain that we are going to attain the Bloomington lands. It looks encouraging, but it's not a sure thing. Most definitely not. Very few things are. That's what we are striving for as a council, and perhaps the next council will pursue it because it is available. I think anytime I hear compromise. I mean, it works in certain areas, but compromise means that both groups are not getting exactly what they want. It's settling. I don't believe in settling when we can have it all and it's just a matter of 1 or 2 years to get it all. You know, when we make a plan and have a vision, you know, you got to have the courage to and have the optimism to carry it forward. I don't believe in purchasing the land and say, okay, we're going to divvy this up, so 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. Either one group enjoys it all or not at all, unless it's 30 acres or 50 acres. We're talking about 12, 13. You know, I'm quite confident and optimistic that you know, where there's a will, there is a way. There will be, whether it be through repurposing or there be other opportunities coming up, there will be opportunities to have more soccer fields or more baseball diamonds, whichever. But I don't believe in a compromise 1 for 1. I think if that was the case and some other property came up somewhere else in town, are we going to, again, choose 1 baseball diamond, 1 soccer field, you know, it's going to be, this whole town's going to be pockmarked with 1 and 1 or 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. You know, you make a bold, you have a vision, you go forward with it, and hoping for the best foot forward. And I believe that if you keep with the plan, you know, it'll happen. I mean, sure, we can't predict what the cost is going to be, but it'll happen. But I don't believe that you know, 1 and 1 is a solution here. You know, both my kids play soccer and baseball. You know, I'm torn because, you know, we love all sports, and my kids play both sports, and so it's a tough one. But I will go with the staff recommendation. I don't think we need to analyze anything any further. If we wanted a hardball diamond, we can certainly look at that, because that, you know, there seems to be space to have that. So I think I just want to say that you know, I'm fine with the staff recommendation. I certainly don't believe in compromise, and if the recommendation was for 2 soccer fields, I go for 2 soccer fields, because I don't believe in a 1-on-1 situation. If we compromise with every decision we had to make, you know, what would our town look like? Thank you.
I'm going to call the vote using your tablets, please. The motion fails. Councilor Maracas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put a motion on the floor that for one senior softball / hardball diamond, 1 senior soccer / multi-use field.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Humphreys? Sir.
Thank you. Although I should possibly be an expert of the procedural bylaw at this point in time, being a councillor for 3.5 years, we have a member of council missing, and I'd like a little clarity, or at least the clerk perhaps to shed light on the procedures. If a member of council is missing, the process for a reconsideration of the tie vote, and if this, before we decide on another item, if this matter could be referred to a subsequent meeting in order to satisfy that. But I'd just like the clerk to confirm that I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Thomas, correct. There is a provision in the procedure bylaw that it would not be a reconsideration should the missing councillor come back next time and this matter be taken up again. However, if a subsequent motion was passed by council tonight, I think that would take precedent over that in the procedure bylaw.
So would the correct, thank you, Mr. Clerk, and through you, Mr. Mayor, would the correct procedure, if you've mentioned that there's a motion now on the floor, is a motion to move for that reconsideration, does that take precedence over a motion that's currently on the floor, or do we have to deal with that first?
Mr. Clerk.
I think we would have to deal with the motion that's currently on the floor before any matters of reconsideration. And I think the matters of reconsideration can only be taken up at the next council meeting, should the absent member be present.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marakis' motion, which has not been seconded. I'm sorry, Councillor Humphrey seconded it. Speakers? I think we've heard most of it. If anybody wants to speak quickly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I'm not going to bring up any more comments. I think everything has been said. I just want to point out to everyone that's here and also everyone, if anyone's watching at home, I think everyone around this table believes what they're asking for, what they're voting for is in the best interest of this community. So I don't think anyone can be faulted for their side or their views. And so I appreciate all the comments. I respect the views of all my colleagues. And like I said, I just think we're all trying to do what's in the best interest of our community. So I'll leave it at that and let's move forward.
Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. And again, tonight has not been easy for me, and I think all of my peers. This is not easy. We want to make sure that everyone is feeling that they're is equally important and have the support of council. I go back to the original master plan, and I do get a little nervous about not purchasing lands for future and then having issues with other clubs not having what they need as well in the immediate near future. So I do hope this turns out to be the best for everyone. And it's not going to stop here. The needs are still much more than what we have on the table right now. So we're going to have to continue to work and provide more services for all the clubs. So just appreciate everyone's attendance and that we do take this very seriously. It's, again, not easy for us or for me personally. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I just echo comments of both the councillors. I do have a question to Mr. Downey or Ms. McDougall. It was said that by building the soccer field at Stuart Burnett, that we have fulfilled the RAC master plan for one more soccer field. My understanding is that was for quite a specialized use. And that use that wasn't actually in the REC master plan?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, the Rec Master Plan, I believe, states that there was to be a senior-lit artificial turf field built at Stuart Burnett, and that's exactly what was built. What the plan for that was to build a multi-purpose field at Stuart Burnett, and that's when council said, well, we would like only a regular soccer pitch built, and only for soccer built, and line for soccer built at Stuart Burnett, and then convert the soccer pitch that was at Shepherd's Bush into a multi-purpose field.
Thank you. But I'm not clear. Does that mean that that field can be used by all of the adult soccer users that would be part of this group?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Stuart Burnett, you're talking about Stuart Burnett? Yes. They could all use that field.
Thank you for that. Thank you for helping me with that.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm having a little problem because, we had a delegation from Sport Aurora, and they were very firm in their decision on going forward. And I would like them to weigh in on the decision that we're making. It might be 2 soccer fields and then repurposing and going to Maicho. It might be prudent just to go back to the PRAC and let them deal with this before we make a decision. I mean, that's what we did before. I'm a little hesitant to go with a last minute something thrown on there. I do appreciate that we've had some input here from our soccer club, but I just think in fairness we should let it go back and then let the recommendation come from PRAC. I mean, so there's a better understanding. It's just I wasn't settled that we've done our due diligence with 2, and I'm not any more settled that 1 and 1 is the answer either. I think it should be unanimous. I think we should have a full idea of what's going on. Some may feel I'm trying to stop something, but I feel that we should be doing our due diligence and allowing an opportunity for the public to weigh in on a decision rather than, because I'm just not certain. I would like to hear some feedback. I'd like to hear back from the delegates and the other sports organizations.
Councillor Gartner for a second time.
Thank you. I guess it's a question for clarification because it was mentioned last week that there was an email sent out that anybody who came to that PRAC meeting would not be able to participate. I think that's probably a standard letter that we send out, but I do believe that anybody who came to that meeting was allowed to participate. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The email invite went out to all of our user groups, informing them of the PRAC meeting, inviting them to send a representative, and letting them know in advance that it would be ideally as an observer. And really that falls in line with what the intent is of the committee meeting. It's not a public debate type meeting. The chair opened that up and did offer that to the participants that were in the room, the ability to speak. And everyone that wanted to was given that opportunity through the chair of that meeting.
Thank you very much. I don't know what purpose it would serve to go back to PRAC then. Thank you.
Councillor Maracas for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think that this recommendation that's in front of us is last minute. This is a recommendation that we've been, or one of the options that we've been dealing with basically since the 2018 budget. We asked for this option to be put on the floor, and if memory serves me correct, Councillor Abel was in favor of that option during the budget process. So now to turn around and say it's last minute and we should mothball it, I think is the wrong message to send out to our community.
Seeing no other speakers, using your tablets, please. Councillor Thompson? Thank you. That passes. No, I'm sorry, it fails. Thank you. I can't read. May I was going to, Councillor Thompson.
As per our procedural bylaw, I'd like to see this item be placed on the agenda, the next council agenda in 2 weeks' time, so that Councillor Perry can involve himself in the discussions and the debate and vote on this matter.
Mr. Clerk, any comments on that? We need to receive it at this point, or we're deferring until Councillor Perry to one cycle.
It's just going to be on council, not on GC.
Right, it's just going to council. It doesn't go to GC. To the deferral. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I ask when, in preparation for the next 2 weeks, when this comes back up? Or 3 weeks?
Sorry.
The next?
3 weeks.
June 12th.
June 12th, okay. It's going to come back June 12th?
Yep.
If I can ask staff to contact the leaders, the organizations both, and ask them about this, one or the other. I mean, ultimately, if the vote at the end of the day is 1 and 1, I'd like both clubs' feedback before next week, if that's possible.
Councillor Maracas.
Just to clarify for everyone, it's the 4-4 recommendation that will be back in front of us for Councillor Perry to make make the decision. Not this recommendation, the 4-4 recommendation. Okay.
Correct. Thank you. All in favor of the deferral? Using your tablets?
Hands, please.
Hand. We'll use hand right now. All in favor of the deferral, please. Contrary? That is unanimous. Health break. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you for coming out. If I could ask everyone to come back, please. Okay, Council, our next item is R1 from last week, the Enhanced Recreation Facility Advertising Sponsorship. Councillor Tom, I believe that you pulled that. Would you care to move that for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and based on some of the comments we had
I need a second, please.
I'm explaining what I'm about to propose, if you don't mind.
No, we got to second it, then you can speak to it, okay?
Well, okay. I suppose I'll move the staff recommendation for discussion.
Councillor Kim, you seconding it? Back to you, sir.
Thank you. So what I was proposing was that last week there was some discussion about tweaks that council or committee and that council are looking for with regards to some of the details of this framework that staff have put forward. And obviously, I think there's ample time tonight for additional comments and discussions, but I think because there's really no rush on this and we want to get this right, I would have no problem referring this back to staff and that the comments heard around the council table be incorporated into, say, a revised recommendation moving forward. An example being, Councillor Gartner last week talked about perhaps inappropriateness of sponsorship of trails. I agree with that. So I think that for me, moving forward, we might look at something that doesn't include that. There was discussions around a number of items, and certainly there might be more comments tonight. So perhaps I'll wait to make that motion and listen to the comments received from other members of council, but certainly there's no rush to make this happen at this point in time, and so I would be supportive of a referral in order for staff to come back with a tightened up recommendation.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. McDougall. Ms. McDougall, if this is going to go back to staff, I thank you for the information you sent. I couldn't figure out how the signage was going to look on the trails. I'm not sure that there was an example of that, but if there is going to be any signage on the trail, and I agree with Councillor Tom, I don't like that idea, but could it be something very classy just at the head of the trail? And were you anticipating seeing it along the trail as people are walking? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would not be throughout the trail necessarily. It's more about at the trailhead, like you've suggested. It certainly would be an opportunity to name the trail, but at this point, if there's some different inputs that we're looking at, staff can go back and come back with a more expanded suggestion, and certainly sharing the images as samples within the main report for the public to see.
Thank you, and I'm not sure. I would kind of like to go around the table, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in having advertising in the washrooms. I mean, we can have our town advertising of events, but I really wouldn't want to see advertising in the washrooms.
Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just, we're voting on this item? I know there was some, we're going to refer back?
Not yet.
I had asked, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, the net proceeds that we're getting now is $8,000, and it's due to what we collect and what we pay a staff member. Could you clarify that for me? I don't know if I've got that right.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we're looking at, the net proceeds actually, sorry, that was in the summary under background. The net proceeds for revenues for the advertising and sponsorship are annually now at $155,000. What we're looking at and proposing with these additional components for the remainder of 2018 would be an additional $8,000 in revenue potential. Looking ahead to 2019, we're projecting another 30,000 in revenue. It's an anticipation of that growth over time.
So 155 plus 8,000 for this year makes 163, plus 30 makes 193. Is that what you're saying?
That's the proposal, yes.
That's the proposal, okay. But that is to be offset by what we pay for staff.
Correct. The salary or wage for 2018 has already been accommodated in the budget, in the operating budget. The additional 8,000 would help offset that increase in staff time, noting that we're going from a 24-hour part-time staff position to a 35-hour. So it's not a doubling of the staff, it's just an enhancement of those hours.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get a handle on what the net is. If we're hiring someone and this is what we're getting, what is our net? Are we allowed to divulge that? It's kind of personal.
Ms. McDougall?
I think through you, Mr. Mayor, that type of information is not broken down in this report. That'd be something that I could include when we report back.
Okay, thank you. You know, and it's just a comment. There are a lot of organizations that go for sponsorship, and it's a struggle to get those monies, and it's difficult to compete against the town for those sponsorships, and it really has an effect on some of these organizations because they don't have like what the town has. The town has staff and a huge budget. You know, it's only it's not a big amount of money percentage-wise to the whole operation, as whereas those kind of funds would do a lot of work, a lot of good for a lot of organizations out there. So that's just a comment that I'm relaying that was relayed to me. Some of the charities and organizations that work very hard in our community to benefit our community are like, wow, it's tough enough now, and you know, it doesn't seem quite fair that you've got a paid staff member and staff and all that money that is given to the you know, through our operations of our special events.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Just to be clear, obviously it is a challenge for all community groups looking for sponsorship. I think when we talk about sponsorship, we're talking about assets the town has. So sponsorship, for example, Pfaff Motors of the, I forget what ice pad it is, at the SARC. That's a sponsorship. It's obviously, it's a quid pro quo. The town gets revenue, which helps with the operating cost of the building. It helps, well, I think it just goes into general revenue or at the current time, I can't remember. But that's revenue to the town to offset, you know, the equivalent tax burden that would have. Now, Councillor Abel talks about it being small. That's the whole point. We want to make it larger. We want to increase the revenue to the town so we don't have to rely as much on taxes, fees, or other things. I don't think that looking at the sponsoring of baseball diamonds by local businesses, or any business for that matter, competes with charities looking for, you know, sponsorship for their causes. I think those are two separate issues. These are assets the town owns, and we're looking to monetize those assets. And I think there's a balance. Councillor Gardner made a good point last week. I think totally valid. I think splash pads, potentially picnic shelters, the trail system for sure. Playgrounds, I don't know how appropriate those are for sponsorship. I think there is a balance, and certainly you don't want to have you know, a situation similar to the Spengler Cup where everyone on their foreheads and arm pads and hockey pants have advertising. I think the refs have, they're sponsored by some dairy company, and they have, instead of stripes, it's like cow spots or something on their ref jersey. So I'm not saying we go that far, but we can obviously you know, try to maximize the revenue we take in while striking that balance. So I don't see the comment from Councillor Abel factoring into this, because these are assets the town already has. You know, we have fences on baseball diamonds which other municipalities sell for revenue. And that to me is just like a rink board is an appropriate area for advertising. And, you know, I think anything we can do in this regard is only going to be beneficial to the town in the long run. And so, having said all that, as I mentioned at the beginning of my second round here, So I guess I'll just list them off. I think I'm happy to make a referral back to staff, and maybe I should just do that. You know what, why don't I just do that right now? I'll make a motion to refer this back to staff.
Sir, before I take your motion, and I appreciate your point, I'm aware that June is going to be a very heavy month. Both cycles are going to be very heavy. And the point that you're making now and that Councillor Gartner made last week was, acceptability of certain items. Can we just strike some now, move forward with this? That's simply my thought. I'll leave that in your hands.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but sometimes when we get into trying to take certain lines out of a staff recommendation or a staff policy, it often leads to, a little bit of, I don't know, gerrymandering or whatever the term you want to use is with the motion. We start to mince words. So I think it might be easier just to provide comments to staff and have them report back to us with a framework that takes into account the wishes of council. So that's just why I think a referral fits better than going on and on and on about which period we want moved and which comma and all that kind of stuff.
Fair enough. Councillor Tom has a motion to refer this back to staff. May I have a second for that, please? Councillor Humphreys. Any comments on the referral back to staff? Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to know exactly, in light of Councillor Abel's comment, I would like to know exactly what the money is going to be used for. I mean, examples of what it has been used for or what is going to be used for, because it's just a general category. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abel, to the referral.
Yes. Well, following Councillor Gartner's, I was specifically talking about events. So like concerts in the park, we get sponsorships and stuff. So along those lines, I know we do the Rib Fest. I think everything gets sponsorship.
Councillor Gartner.
I can't seem to pull up the agenda item, but I think it goes to youth programming or something. If Ms. McDougall would kindly elaborate on that.
Ms. McDougall, can you elaborate on that now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly the additional assets and program enhancements are anticipated, and it would go to the general balance of recreational programming. So to offset any of the expenditures within the recreational budget, it would help offset, so balancing out the bottom line. As far as event sponsorships, that is something that was not part of this proposal. This proposal is specifically proposing an expansion of the program we already have in place about adding in consideration of outdoor facility assets. Sponsorship for our events is an ongoing program and has been for many years. That's not something that's part of this proposal at this time.
Thank you.
A follow-up, didn't I read last time as well it goes to youth programming? Is that to offset the cost of youth programming? Or for extra or special youth programming?
Ms. McDougall?
I have a feeling Mr. Downey could answer that.
He might. No.
Well, on page 6 of 9.
Skimming it. So I apologize.
Support the primary youth outdoor groups. Outdoor user groups. Ms. McDougall? Or Mr. Downey?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there was a youth reserve fund set up, and so all fundraising goes to that reserve, and then money is drawn from that reserve to offset program costs.
So that's the information I'm looking for. I want to know what program costs it's offsetting. If the referral gets, I mean, because...
Well, we're referring this report back to staff.
Could that be included in the information that comes back to us?
Ms. McDougall?
Unless...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will clarify in the next round where these revenues, the line
Okay,
it goes
thank you.
to, and the types of programs it would support.
Okay, so using our tablets, all in favor of the referral back to staff on this item? That carries. And our last item on the regular agenda is R2 from last week, the menorah lighting. Councillor Gartner, you pulled that? Motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to amend the motion.
Well, we move what is here,
Okay,
and
so
then we'll
I
come
move
back
the
to it.
motion as is.
Thank you. Is there a second, please? Councillor Marakis, thank you. Councillor Gartner, to you.
Thank you. I'd like the second clause, with council's approval, the second clause to read that the addition of a menorah lighting ceremony this doesn't make sense to me, but be added to the annual special events starting in 2018. Oh, sorry. That the addition of a menorah lighting ceremony to the annual special events starting in 2018 be approved.
So you're removing the words "in partnership with Chabad Aurora." Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Is that contrary, Mr. Clerk? Okay.
And
Thank you.
if I could just...
I'm sorry? Is there a second for that, please? I'm sorry. Is there a second for that? Councillor Abel,
Thank you. If I could just explain that.
please?
Thank you.
That's to the amendment.
Yes, to the amendment. I'm looking to inclusiveness of the diverse parts of the Jewish community, and I would like to have an opportunity for not only Chabad, but to the Reform, the Conservative, the Orthodox segment of the community to participate in this if they should wish. It makes it inclusive, and thank you. That's all I could say on that.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to, that goes first, right?
I'm sorry?
I have a question on this, but I have to do this first, correct? To make the amendment.
Yeah, well, the amendment's done. We're speaking to the amendment right now.
Do we vote?
I'm sorry?
Right. Okay.
Other speakers to the amendment, please. Councillor Abel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this would be sort of vetted through the rabbi, I forget his name, that was spearheading the menorah lighting. Mr. Mayor, would you recall? I'm sorry, us to be in a conflict. I mean, this is a friendly sort of idea that would be welcomed. I'm not sure. I just wanted to know that. That's all. We're not proposing something that's contrary or anything controversial. Is what I'm trying to avoid.
Councillor Gartner.
Motion reads is that this particular rabbi and this particular organization would be doing this every year going forward, and I don't think that represents the diversity of the community. I wasn't expecting to vet it through him. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what? I think that from my perspective, Councillor Gartner, I would take her as the expert in this. And I think looking at this, it's not saying that we're not looking at not doing the menorah lighting. I mean, for me, it's just removing that, the partnership with a specific faith group, I guess, within the Jewish community. And I think what Councillor Gardner, and she might correct me if I'm wrong, is what she's looking for is she's saying that there's other aspects of the Jewish community as well that might, by saying that we're in partnership with one specific, might preclude them from being able to attend the menorah lighting. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna leave it to Councillor Gardner because I think she is the expert in this, and I'll take her direction on this.
Other speakers, please. I appreciate Councillor Gartner's point of view, but I would like to see some input from staff on this, from Ms. Ware, who's been organizing this from the start, just to make sure that we're not offending any sensitivities, that's all. So I think perhaps maybe if we could ask it to go back to staff to investigate that. Please.
Motion to refer would take precedent.
Mr. Clerk. Just a sec, Council. Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a motion to, just mention the mayor, a motion to refer to staff would take precedence if someone was willing to make that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Maraca, second. Any other comments or questions on this? Councilor Gartner.
It's one. Could somebody remind me? I'm not sure who would do that. The $6,200. Is that? That seems like a lot of money. Is that what do we do? Are we paying for a menorah? Is that what we're doing? We got to
Ms. McDougall? The pricing is listed on page 4 or 5.
I can't find the report. I can't bring it up, thanks.
That's fine. Through Mr. Mayor, the purchase of the menorah is a one-time investment. So the first year, this being the first year of it, totals the $6,200. Subsequent years would be approximately $3,800.
To hold the ceremony.
To hold the ceremonies and do the planning around the special event aspect, but knowing that we own then the menorah candle.
And just one follow-up, is that money to cover our staff costs? The 30?
No, sorry.
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor. The staff costs were part of a subsequent report previously, as noted with the special events team.
Right.
On this financial implications table, it communicates that there's $1,000 for entertainment and family activities such as music, crafts, and games, complimentary food and beverages, $1,000, and then promotions and advertising, newspaper ads, printing for $1,800. That's based on typical special event protocols.
It sounds pretty high to me, but thank you.
Councilor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, and I think it's important that we let everyone know that I think that we're all in favor of moving forward with the menorah lighting. And we're just asking us to go back to find out the best way to go about it.
Thank you. Using our tablets? All in favor, please. Thank you. Passes. That concludes the items for this evening. We have 3 motions. Councillor Abel, your motion's up first.
Oh, will I read it and then ask for a seconder?
Your choice. Your choice.
Thank you. It's my choice. Whereas the town of Aurora Niagara College, through its Canadian Food and Wine Institute, have entered into a partnership agreement to establish a post-secondary learning and training campus at the Aurora Armory. And whereas there are economic and social benefits associated with the presence of a post-secondary institute, and whereas a report from the Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario states that measuring the economic impact of a post-secondary institute can be done through an economic impact analysis, and whereas, as stated in the York Region Post-Secondary Investment Strategy, the economic impacts depend on what type of investment is chosen. And whereas those wishing to measure the economic impacts of their institutions or understand the methods, findings, and limitations in studies done elsewhere would do so through an economic impact analysis. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that staff be directed to undertake an economic impact analysis for the Post-Secondary Canadian Food and Wine Institute, and be it further resolved that the report be completed within 2 council meeting cycles so that council and the public can be presented with the report on the economic impact analysis.
Is there a second, please?
Come on, there's one there.
Councillor Kim, thank you. Yep, that's fine. Councillor Abel.
Mr. Mayor, and I thank Councillor Kim. I think it's very important, coming out of 18 months of closed session, the public should be aware of the social and economic benefits. And if having studied and had a look at the post-secondary investment strategy, which we did not do, but it outlines what a model looks like, a location, and funding. So from the York Region, and we all have a copy of it, a model they recommend is along what they call science, technology, engineering, and math. And that's what the York Region is looking for in a post-secondary institute, namely a university. Higher education, these are the ones that have a great deal of economic impact and identified. Culinary is not one of them in the top areas. So I think it's important that if we're going to say post-secondary has economic and social benefits, that we understand what they are. Also, with the model, it's a location. You need a location to outline, and then as well understood that the main funder of any campus is the province. Now, a satellite campus can cost anywhere between $50 million to a full-blown out campus, $800 million. So if you don't have the province, that means we're picking up the tab. So we have to understand that we're not in a position to sink millions and millions of dollars into a post-secondary unless we have the province. The province requires an investment strategy, and it has to have an economic analysis before you can apply and for them to consider. If you don't have that, then it's not a business model they're interested in even looking at. So if we're going to go and take this route and make this investment, we should understand what those impact benefits are that we talk about. Primarily, the spin-off economic are the activities associated with the students, and primarily, if you have residents, that's where you get your activity. So, for example, in Bradford, they made a loan to Laurier of $1 million. It was a loan. It was 5 years. It was interest-free. And they had a mandate, which is called a strategic mandate agreement, that they had to provide 450 students. Now, they started off with 39, and they had several abandoned buildings. And their secret was that they turned in some of the residents the buildings into residents. And so now they have, of those abandoned buildings, 11 of those buildings are residents. And they were devastated because they had 3 or 4 major Massey Ferguson that withdrew. They were big industries. So that's why downtown was abandoned. Our armory in the town park is not an abandoned place. So we have to understand that if there's going to be benefits, the long runs are with income tax from people that graduate. And graduates from culinary wouldn't be able to afford to stay in Aurora. So we won't see those economic impacts. And so that's why it's important that we bring this forward and let our citizens understand what kind of investment we're making.
Other speakers, please. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I applaud Councillor Abel for wanting an economic impact analysis. In many cases, they're very useful. In this case, however, I'm not sure whether I want to put in staff time or any other options for an economic impact analysis, only because these types of impact analysis reports are already out there. When you read at reports from Lethbridge or London, Ontario, Kingston, you see that the common trend is when you have economic downturns, the university towns stagnate. And that's actually a good word when the economy is in downturn, because you don't want the economy to go down, you want it to stay flat. So they actually buffer. Post-secondary educational institutions normally and almost always buffer a community during an economic downturn. And conversely, it acts as a turbo boost during an economic upturn. Now, to be honest, I haven't read any particular report that pertains to Culinary Institute, but if you look at a post-secondary educational impact on municipalities, all the ones that I've read and heard about have been very positive. I don't see how a Culinary Institute would be that much more different. And I guess the second point is, I think the timelines, even if we were to approve this, I think 2 cycles, I think it would take far longer than 2 cycles to have staff bring this back. If we had more time, that's another story, but I think that's another reason why I'm not sure I can support this at this time. And those are my 2 comments. I'm fine with institution locating here, and with the positive business impacts I foresee. And I don't think I can support the motion, but I do, thank Councillor Abel for bringing this forward and bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I just want to deal with the second clause first with regards to asking staff to complete it within a 2-cycle or 28-day period. I guess, first off, through you to Mr. Nadarozny. Mr. Nadarozny, is 28 days reasonable for an economic impact analysis, one that does it, I guess, properly? Because what I've seen from Brantford and other places that have done them, typically they're anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks, and they use a consultant.
Sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I agree. A 2-cycle timeline, which is really only 2 weeks, given our agenda schedule, is rather aggressive for the kind of work that you'd want to do. I think that would be true even if it were just a prospective analysis, not knowing, not having a specific partner in mind, but more generally going after post-secondary institution. In our case right now, it would be sort of not that relevant to do a prospective one when we have a partner already signed up. So we would want to engage that partner, and rather than guessing at what kinds of things would go on, we'd want to get an actual activity profile from them so that we could actually use real numbers based on what they're going to do, as opposed to putting out an economic analysis based on a hypothetical. So I would think in this situation it might take even a little longer, because I know they're actively involved in that program development right now, but I would think that they would want to have that a little more refined if it's going to be measured as an economic impact analysis.
Councillor?
Thank you. And secondly, I guess with regards to staff, throughout this process, and even before, Councillor Abel and I were fortunate to be on the post-secondary working group. I think that was the title back in the last term. And, we traveled to Windsor. We had conversations with Seneca when it came to the Fab Lab, and ongoing. We went after the York University campus that was going to be in the GTA somewhere. And so, over that time, staff have always come to us and talked about the economic benefits and the community benefits of attracting a post-secondary institution. And so specifically with regards to this proposal, staff have relayed to us the benefits that they saw throughout the discussions with Niagara College. But I want to be clear. Did staff do due diligence with regards to this being a benefit to the community before making the recommendation to us to pursue it? Through you to Mr. Nadarozny.
Sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our work was predicated on the desire of the community to attract a post-secondary institution here. And so we assumed that the the non-spreadsheet benefits of having that institution in this community were of something of great interest to council and the community. So it was on that basis that we started off. It wasn't started off with an economic model. That work was done at a more general level on post-secondary education and its value to communities. From that point on, our negotiations with Niagara College, as this council is aware, was based on the actual numerical model that we saw being an appropriate level of investment for the return that we would get over the full term of the lease. So it spoke more to the dollar costs and not subjecting the town to excessive amount of subsidy to get that post-secondary institution here in the community. So it very quickly went from the theoretical, like, let's get a post-secondary here and let's do it if we can, and then as we started working through the details, it was about the lease and an appropriate sharing of those responsibilities.
Thank you. I think that, not just for timing matters, I think it would be more appropriate if council wants to pursue an analysis to bring in a third party, because I think, staff are going to say the same thing that they've said to us from the get-go, and that's that they fully support this and they see the benefits. And if you didn't accept it before, I don't think you're going to accept it now. And so for myself, in my own research, my own conversations, I do see the economic benefits, and not just dollars and cents. I see cultural benefits, social benefits. It's a much wider range of benefits attracting a post-secondary education, whether it be culinary, engineering, STEM model, whatever you want to say. The benefits vary, but they're all beneficial to the community. And so there is an argument to be made to have an analysis at this point in time as a baseline, so that 5 years from now, when the lease is up and we're talking about long-term, as Councillor Abel talks about, in terms of a satellite campus and investments and so forth, you have a baseline upon which to properly analyze the benefits that have occurred over that 5-year period against your assumptions. I know Brantford did that. I think when Brantford did their first one in 2006, they said something like, the benefits to the community would be $30 or $40 million. And 5 years later, when they did it again in 2011, those benefits were 20% greater. They pegged it at around $40 to $50 million. And so it can be a tool to help us in future decision making. I would assume the region was probably doing one. As many people know, the region of York just gave $25 million to York University for their Markham campus. I'm sure they did their due diligence, and I'm sure that they also believe there's great financial benefit to the community of having that university in Markham as well. So I don't think that moving forward with asking staff to do it in a 28-day will produce the results that some are looking for. I think the proper way to go about it is to conduct the analysis through a consultant.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any of the speakers for the first time? A couple of comments. Councillor Thompson talked about due diligence, and from staff's point of view, that was done. I think, quite frankly, due diligence is up to this council. And does our council feel that due diligence occurred? I would say yes. I think we've looked at it very carefully over the last, I'm going to say, 6-7 years. I think we have to be very careful at the numbers we throw around. $50 million is nowhere close to what we're looking at investing. If we were moving ahead, as an example, with the York University campus here in the Newmarket Aurora area, like we proposed a number of years ago, you would be easily into that to start. We're nowhere close to that. So I think we have to be very careful of the numbers we're putting out there. We don't want people to be misled in terms of what this is going to cost. I would support, I think again to Councillor Thompson's point, I would support going outside to a consultant who actually can take all this into account and come back to us with a fulsome report. I think it's very unrealistic to have staff to come and do this in this particular time frame. I just don't think that can occur. So if that was changed, if we were going to go back and request staff to put together terms of reference and to look for someone who could put that together, I would be supportive of that. but I can't support certainly Clause 2. Any other speakers after? Councillor Abel?
Well, that's very encouraging. I would have thought we would have had a project methodology on this, which we didn't, and we had that recommendation from the JOC. Certainly, we would have had a post-secondary investment strategy, and we didn't have that as well. And one thing for sure is each model is different than another. So the effects of a culinary, and we talk about what these benefits are, but no one can specifically say what they are. We should have had this, and to the point of the province putting funding in, that outlines why we should have gone all through this and explained and looked for funding. So we're going in without a partner. As Mr. CIO said, the benefits were assumed. And if you look at some of the economic impact analysis, you can see that Calgary did a great one. They had 80,000 students with 7 universities and colleges, and 10,000 people on staff that were working at all these colleges. So you can see right away what the benefits are. People reside there. They also talked about the people that live there and stay there. And so those are the long stream, they call them far-reaching economic benefits, but they help the province. So if we have culinary students coming in and they can't afford to rent here, then they're leaving, there's no economic activity. We have 150 students. And if they can't afford to live here, they're not going to set up their businesses or whatever, because again, there's nowhere to live, so they'll go back to where they are. So really, there are very few benefits that you can say we'll see. As far as social and community, it's a good point. The busiest place, it's not like we're abandoned at the town park. The town park is the very center of our community and social. We have concerts, rinks, baseball, splash pads. We have everything there. What we don't have is a facility of 7,000 square feet that can house all the other activities that we want. And that's what we should have done with the steering committee, is analyzed where we're going to put it. We wouldn't put it at a facility that we really direly need. We could have, as I said before, we could have been at Baldwin's and leased that and given a loan to Niagara College, and then had a 7,000 square foot armory for ourselves. What we're doing is we're adding 1,400 square feet to the armory, and we're going to net, and we haven't even seen what we're going to net, but by drawings it looks like we're going to net 3,000 square feet. So in my mind, we're not gaining anything socially, we're losing on a great valuable space. So as far as assumed social and economic, just at a look, I would assume that there are none. If we had put Niagara in the Baldwin's, which was a 5,000 square foot top, and give them a loan, interest-free, we could have then had the advantage of both our community hub and a post-secondary as we go down. So I think what it would be fair to the public is knowing what exactly we have done. And the only way to do it is with a third-party analysis. So if it could move things forward, why not take out Clause 2 and just replace it with ask staff to come back with an RFP? There's a company that did it in Calgary, EEMI, and they've done 1,400 of these studies, and so they would be very familiar with working quickly for us to get this done. These are very common, and they're used to convince policymakers, and they're used to convince the public of why you would make such an investment. So, and I think it would only be fair that since we didn't have a steering committee, and we didn't have an investment strategy, and we didn't partner with the province, which is a mandatory, and we don't know what their program development is, we should at least let the public know what we have done. And this is a very easy tool to use. So, Mr. Mayor, I would like these voted separately, and if I could, remove clause 2 and replace it with refer to staff for an RFP process.
Procedure? That's an amendment. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Thompson mentioned it. I'd just like to mention it again. When we made this decision as a council, every single councillor has done their due diligence on this project. And part of that due diligence is the economic impact to our town. And we made our individual decisions based on what we thought was in the best interests of the town, the community, and included in that was the economic impacts. As been stated, if we want to track this project over the term of the lease in order to look how we can improve on the lease moving forward, or look and improve on the program or the partnership moving forward as this progresses, then I think that's something that's worth looking into. And certainly will take longer than 2 meeting cycles to complete. But Councillor Abel has just outlined why he voted against the project. He basically just reiterated why he voted against it. And in my opinion, this is not an attempt to get the economic impacts, but an attempt to further drag out the process so that, you know, he has another opportunity to talk about why he's against the project. We have moved forward with this, and I certainly believe it is in the economic interest of the town and will have benefits for our town. And certainly I am totally in favor of tracking that progress. But I don't think that's the intent of this motion. I think the intent of this motion is to, for Councillor Abel to be able to, quite frankly, continue to grandstand on this issue. So I'll be voting against it.
Yes?
Mr. Mayor, it's very clear what I have outlined in my recitals. I want a basis to measure what the benefits are that we're talking about. No one here has been able to do it. I have outlined a means of doing it. I would ask that he retract the statement that I just want to grandstand. I think it's inappropriate.
Councillor Tom, please rephrase.
I will not rephrase. Councillor Abel just spent 5 minutes talking about the negative, or the fact that those impacts won't be there in his opinion. So his mind certainly seems made up that he doesn't believe this is in the economic interest of the town.
Okay.
So I will not rephrase.
I would request that you withdraw the phrase grandstanding.
I don't know what other term to use, Mayor Daw.
Well,
He spent 5 minutes talking about how he doesn't believe in his opinion that this has
Councillor
any
Tom.
economic impacts. So what do you call that? And then he tells me that he isn't saying that.
Thank you. Councillor Abel, carry on. I find for you.
Thank you, but it was Councillor Tom that was talking, so.
Councillor Abel, I apologize. Councillor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor Tom. I think we all did our due diligence. We all understand what the economic benefits and the spin-offs could be from having Niagara College be at the Armory. And that's what we've based our decision on. And it's clear, as Councillor Tom has mentioned, from the comments from Councillor Abel, that he doesn't believe that there is any economic benefit to this. So at the end of the day, why would we look at getting a report that at the end of the day he's still going to say no to? And it's actually quite interesting that, you know, Councillor Abel over the last couple of months has commented on many issues in regards to saving taxpayers' dollars. And here we are, he's looking to spend taxpayers' dollars in doing a study that at the end of the day he's going to say no to. So which is it? Are you looking to save taxpayer dollars, or are you looking to spend tax dollars?
Question of privilege. Your question of privilege, Councillor Abel.
I think it's unfair of Councillor Maracus to assume what I'm going to say. I'm only asking that we have a measurement of the impact analysis. I think it would be unfair to say I'm already going to be against it.
Councillor Maracus, would you please rephrase?
Sure. During his comments, Councillor Abel stated that he doesn't believe that there's any economic benefit. And so therefore, I don't understand how by going out and spending tax dollars to get a study to say that there is an economic benefit, which we all agree there is, and we've heard it from our staff, that somehow he's all of a sudden going to turn around and say, oh yeah, this is great, because he's just going to hear the same thing.
Thank you. Council, I need a motion to extend. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Question of privilege. I'm not going to keep.
What is your question?
If it came back and said there were economic benefits, then
Councillor
I would
Humphreys.
agree with it.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, the floor is yours. Gentlemen. Gentlemen.
So, to you, Mr. Mayor, I think the intent of this, to me, should have been asked way at the beginning, and I think we have this information. I mean, it's a post-secondary education education institute. So there's no doubt this is something that I think every municipality and ourselves have been vying for a very long time. What I would suggest, and I don't want to make any amendments or anything like this, but I think as we go along with the arrangement that is there, that we track how well it's going, and from an economic development perspective, that reports come once a year on the review of it, and we go from there. And then we could just, from that perspective, I could see value, but at this point, there's no value in, for me, for this report at the moment.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers, please? There is no amendment. There's no amendment. There is no amendment. I'm sorry?
We're ready to split the clauses.
Yeah, we were asked to split the clauses.
I asked if I could eliminate the second one. You said you were going to go for procedure. I don't know if I got an answer.
Well, I also suggest you needed to put an amendment on the floor. Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, you wouldn't need an amendment.
Yeah. So we either separate the clauses or we put an amendment on the floor. We've obviously already separated the clauses. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. I would put an amendment for the second clause to be that we refer this to staff to put an RFP for a consultant and to report back on the cost.
Councillor Tom.
Councillor Abel's moving a motion, but he's already spoken twice.
The mover of a motion gets to speak 3 times. They do get to summarize.
Okay.
That has been our procedure.
Thanks.
There's an amendment on the floor. Mr. Clerk, are you comfortable with the amendment?
He's a seconder.
If you could you give us the amendment, please, Mr. Clerk?
I believe it's that clause to be amended to refer the recommendation or for an economic impact analysis to be RFP for an economic impact analysis for a post-secondary Canadian Food and Wine Institute be created and put out for tender or for bid.
It's contrary.
Well, that's the original clause.
This would also amend clause 1 that that staff be directed to undertake an RFP for an economic impact analysis.
Sheeta, can you bring both clauses up, please? Thank you. Councillor Abel?
Mr. Mayor, I think it might be just simpler if we just say that staff be directed to undertake an RFP for an economic impact analysis.
So eliminate clause 2 and modify clause 1?
Yeah.
Mr. Clerk, go with that? Yep. Is there a second for that, please? There's not a second for that, sir. Councillor Thompson seconding the amendment? Any speakers to the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
I'll speak to the amendment. I'd hate to go straight to an RFP without bringing back the terms of reference first, just so we're clear on what we're asking for and that it resolves Councillor Abel's concerns or issues and helps him move past this and get some closure so that we can welcome Niagara College going forward. So I would ask that instead of going to an RFP, that he just ask staff to bring forward terms of reference.
Sir, Mr. CIO.
To you, Mr. Mayor, at this point, we have no budget and no terms of reference, so that would be the next step anyway, is to bring it back to council to get direction on how to proceed.
Perfect.
So then the amendment should be that staff bring back terms of reference? And we're good. Councillor Abel and Thompson good with that? Councillor Tom, can you bring that up, please, Ishita, when you get that in? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding is that... Yeah, to the amendment. So will the terms of reference be measuring the project over the course of the term of the lease, or is it going to be time constrained to them doing an analysis of what we know today?
Mr. CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my recommendation would be that we put a couple of those options in the report, since I don't know, given that we're in a contract with Niagara College, how much value there would be in just simply stating it at the start. But it's whatever council directs. But we'd put some options in there, I guess.
Great. So there will be options, and just I know this will likely be included, but what will the likely cost of this be? If you're not comfortable giving me a ballpark, that's fine. But if you are,
again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd rather not give a cost, just because I think this would be different than most of these traditionally are done. Most of these are done prospectively when you're trying to recruit one and you're trying to build a model that gets the community interested in even getting the thing here, whereas we have it. And so exactly. I would want to ask the consultant to work with Niagara College to use real numbers and their real programming plan.
So essentially, the fruit of this motion as amended will be to provide us with terms of reference for the scope of work, potential budget, and that'll be the next touch point for this decision. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. My 2 cents is that I think it should be a go forward, sort of establish a baseline so that we can establish the value 5 years from now. But the other comment I just want to make is that I don't think it should be limited to just an economic impact analysis. I think that if you're going to bring back options, it should be for a more broader impact analysis that includes sort of social, cultural, and so forth. Councillor Abel did state earlier that he doesn't believe that there's any benefits, socially or culturally. So I think we need to look at the whole perspective so that he's well informed.
Thank you. To the amendment, Councillor Abel.
Just for clarification, I didn't say there were none. I just said we could do more without them. So it's...
Calling the vote on the amendment then. All those in favor, please, using your tablets. That's actually is. Main motion as amended. Yes, yeah. It is the main motion as amended, as clerk just corrected me. That motion fails. Councillor Abel, if I may pass the chair to you, please.
Oh, we should go back to the main motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's so.
So this was just an amendment. I apologize.
It was an amendment. Yeah, so we go back to the main motion.
Main motion, which is
as just the main motion then.
Exactly.
So everyone's spoken. So just calling the vote, please. Pardon me? Yeah, we can split. Splitting item. Ishita, we're going to split. Okay, voting using your tablets, please. Vote on Clause 1. Clause 1 fails. Clause 2, please, Ishita. Voting on Clause 2, please, with your tablets. Clause 2 fails. That motion is defeated. Councillor Abel, if I may pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Mayor Daw, we have two notices of motion today.
Yes.
And the first one, would you like to introduce that?
I'll just move that as is.
Do I have a seconder? Seconder for the motion? Councillor Tom?
And with council's permission, I do have a friendly amendment.
Point of order, excuse me, Councillor Thompson?
Is this an order since it refers to something that doesn't exist?
Well, that's with a
Let
friendly
me ask
amendment.
the clerk.
Because as Councillor Thompson points out, there is no government at this point. And I did speak with the clerk on that, so my suggestion is that we change the wording. Be it further resolved that the town of Aurora send a copy of the resolution to the Premier of Ontario and the leader of the official opposition after the June 7th, 2018 provincial election. I just want to see us on the record.
Hang on. Councillor Thompson, do you wish to comment on what the mayor just said there?
I raised this point of order. I'd like the clerk to rule on. This motion is in order to begin with because it refers to something that doesn't exist. So how can we make an amendment to a motion that is not in order? So I'd like the clerk to rule on, because as we noted earlier, when Mayor Daw was introducing our MPP Chris Ballard, he noted that he's no longer the MPP because the writ's dropped. So neither the bill nor the ask to send a letter to Ernie Hardman is the MPP. So
Okay, I think we understand.
is it in order? No.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of the technicalities of the situation. To me, this is an order for what I know.
Okay, that's fine.
Clerk has ruled. So I've got Mayor Daw putting the motion forward, seconded by Councillor Tom. Mayor Daw, would you care to?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to, this did come up before, obviously, the provincial legislature was dissolved, and I felt it was important to at least get us on the record with respect to landfills. Although there's precious little space in Aurora that we could actually put a landfill, which is a good thing, I do think it's beneficial for us to have that on there with respect to, again, when the new Premier is sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Any other comments, questions? I've got Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Abel. Further to Councillor Thompson's comments, I think he's referring to the fact that if Bill 16 hadn't gotten royal assent, that it dies on the order paper when the legislature is dissolved for an election. However, and so I thought about that after seconding it, obviously. But I think the way I read it is we're talking about supporting Bill 16, the contents in Bill 16, with respect to what was introduced by the MPP, and it's still a statement of support for that bill. Whether or not the bill gets passed or reintroduced when the legislature is resumed after the election is another matter. I don't think it's out of order, as the clerk said. Certainly, the motion is that we support what Bill 16 was looking to do, and so to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't send, that support to those members of the legislature or the leaders of the party when the legislature resumes. So, so I guess that's my point of view. Whether or not it gets reintroduced is another matter. So I don't know. It is kind of a sticky situation. But to me, I think we're supporting what's in Bill 16 and letting our future MPPs know that that's the case.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
I'm not sure about the wording, but I think we understand the intent. So I'm okay with it as it is. It is a strange situation, though. Thank you. That's all for this minute.
Councillor Marakis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm just wondering maybe if it makes sense to remove, I mean, because I agree. I mean, the bill has died at the table, and therefore it doesn't exist. I don't know if the mayor would be willing to remove the Bill 16 aspect of it, and I think maybe a better way to say that we support the right for municipalities to approve or deny landfill developments is to actually write that in that and say that's what we support and send it to the moving forward government and just remove the Bill 16 because Bill 16 doesn't exist. So and I just think procedurally that makes more sense. If you're okay with that, then I'd be willing to support that. I wouldn't be able to support it if it said Bill 16.
Yes, the seconder says yes, the clerk says yes. We'll remove it. Supports Bill 16. I think it's just the operative part we'd like removed. Just a friendly amendment. It's a friendly amendment.
And we need,
Yep, Mr. Clerk?
Through Mr. Chair, we'll also get rid of everything after Landfill Sites Act. And so introduced by MPP Ernie Hardman that calls upon the Government of Ontario. I think that would be appropriate to move if we're removing the references to Bill 16 as well. So we're just respecting, the spirit of it is that the town of Aurora is respecting municipal authority over landfilling sites act.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is Sheila okay with that? We'll get there. All right. Is that it, Councillor Marakis? Okay, I'll go to the next. Councillor Thompson.
I was of a similar mind, just to strike that out so that it reads, resolved that the town of Aurora calls upon the Government of Ontario and all political parties to formally grant the authority to approve landfill projects, et cetera, et cetera. Really, you're striking out from supports all the way down to Hardman and therefore just it reads simply. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
We seem to have a consensus, Mayor. Very good. Any other comments, questions?
We'll just need a second.
Okay, we're just going to take a moment to get it up clearly on the screen. What day is it?
It's got its fixtures, isn't it?
Forget about sports. Are we there? Let me know when we're ready.
We're ready.
All right, if that's the end, we'll vote using your tablets. Everyone's in. It's unanimous. Thank you, Mayor Dahl. We have another notice. Mayor Dahl, I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Humphreys. Mayor Dahl, would you care to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move as is.
I have Councillor Humphreys as seconder.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually had a discussion with Mr. Taylor a few months ago about this and working forward with that and with the Habitat for Humanity people. The point here is for the town of Aurora, where I'm asking staff to come back with what the implications of this change would be. And I think it's we have a lot of discussions on affordable housing. I think this is one area that we can step up to with very little cost, quite frankly, to the town of Aurora. But I think it can make a huge impact on any one particular family. And we had the opportunity, I guess, last term to go to the Habitat for Humanity house that was built by the Daniels Group up on Bayview. So I think it's an opportunity, and depending on what resolves out of here, I will then take that forward to the region to get their buy-in as well, hopefully. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I support the intent of it. I just had a quick question. I know in other deferred development charge agreements that we've had that party sign an agreement with the town, and should something happen to the property, they sell it or whatever, then there's a mechanism with regards to the development charges. So is it your intent that staff report that comes back talks about what happens to this property should the people sell it and so forth? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll vote using your tablets. That carries. I'll put the chair back to Mayor Daw.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abel. There is no regional report. New business, I think. Councillor Maracas, I start with you on new business tonight. Okay, thank you. Councillor Gartner. Any new business, please?
I often get this wrong, but I think this is new business. We've spent a lot of time talking about Brookland, and I received an email from a resident, actually, and a call from a resident, that the work on Brookland, they got notice that the road was supposed to be finished by June something, and I don't believe they've even started on the road. So the problem continues. I don't know, Mr. Muno, if you know anything about this, or Mr. Niederosny, but definitely.
Mr. Muno, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe we've sent out notices with respect to the timing of the, what's left is the top coat of asphalt and raising some of the catch basins, as well as the replanting along the stream corridor. And I think we're trying to work with the contractor to get that work done, this summer, early fall. But there's no definitive time frame yet. But as soon as I have one, I'll communicate that with to council and the residents in the area.
Councillor?
I don't know if that's going to be good enough for the residents. They've been waiting all winter to have this road finished. I understand there might be problems with the contractor, but we haven't taken care of these residents throughout this project. It's been pretty terrible for them and for those businesses. So I think we should be able to decide what we're going to do with this going forward, and inform the residents of when this is going to happen. I don't think it's fair to them or right for us just to leave them hanging. So, Mr. Niederosny, I know you were pretty involved with this, but I'll leave this to you. Also, the manager of the co-op behind Metro told me that last week, on Wednesday evening, there was work being done on the tracks from 1:30 in the morning to 4 in the morning. I can imagine it was very disruptive to the people trying to sleep, but she said there was no notice given of any kind. So maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Rumino, what can we expect from Metrolinx? That I believe, the residents should be kept in the loop. There's a lot of residents who live backing onto that track. Do you have any idea what's going on?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I'm not aware of any work, but I will certainly put a call in tomorrow to see if we can get an idea of what their work plan is moving forward. I didn't realize they were out there this weekend doing any work.
And what would be the process to communicate any work to the residents? Thank you so much. You'll send me an email on that? Thank you.
Councillor Thompson. No. Councillor Jeffries, new business. Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim. Councillor Kim, have anything in the PSA world? Councillor Tom?
Just briefly, one regarding the Victoria Day weekend we just had, and I certainly hope all Aurorans had a good Victoria Day weekend. And also, I think, just to congratulate officially the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on their wedding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Humphreys. Don't touch the button.
Okay, good. Thank you. So just a reminder, it's the official grand opening of the Aurora Farmers Market. Everyone's invited to come on out. It starts from 8 to 1. And this week will be a little special. There'll be some prizes and some special champagne and orange juice, little samples for everyone, cake, and lots of prizes and great music. So hopefully see everybody. And the official sort of announcements will be taking place at around 11 o'clock at the stage. So it'll be fun for everyone to join in. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson. PSAs. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gardner, sorry. PSAs?
No.
Okay. Councillor Maracas? Okay. Just a couple of quickly, we were all at the opening of the Thomas Coates Park this afternoon, formerly Mavernack Park. It's a very, very fine piece of work. So congratulations to everybody involved in putting that together. It looks great. There's all sorts of wonderful things there to do. The Town Square naming opportunity is still out there. You can do that through placespeak.com/nameyoursquare. And I think that will do it for tonight. Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner?
That is over when that opportunity is...
Place Speak?
The naming contest.
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I don't have that date here in front of me. We'll find out and let you know. Thank you. Bylaws, please. Councillor Kim, Councillor Tom. Using your tablets, please. Confirming bylaw, please. Oops, sorry. Sheila. Just hands for confirming bylaw. Yes, please. And we'll do a hand vote on the confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphreys. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. May I please have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff.